All right. So this meeting is in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Notice of this meeting was posted in two newspapers, The Record, The Ridgewood News. Public is advised that the Land Use Board's rule that the meetings are concluded by 10 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to start off by saying that was the best Pledge of Allegiance that this has ever seen.
Second that.
Roll call.
Mr. Shapiro,
Here.
Councilwoman Marsh, here, Mr. Pendo,
Yes.
Mr. Yuan,
Here.
Mr. Kaufman,
Here.
Mr. Mazur.
Here.
Chairman Bellamy.
Here. So first order of business is the minutes from the March 24th, 2026 meeting. Any changes? We can get a motion to approve, please.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Okay, so for the first order of business is an amendment for the 300. What? We don't have it.
Well,
Okay.
continue announcing it and then I'll tell them.
All right. So the first order on the agenda is the amendment to the Chestnut Ridge, 300 Chestnut Ridge Urban Renewal LLC. I guess.
So for the record, I spoke with Mark Lehman, the attorney for the applicant, and we went over some of the changes and he had to send it to his client to review, which was just in the last day or two, and he had not heard back from him. So we agreed that we'll put it on for the next month.
Microphones you might be able to use.
We are using microphones.
Try and speak into them, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if there are speakers back there. It's a hallway.
Yeah. Yeah. So either way, we're gonna carry that till next month after he talks to his client, and then we'll send us the proposed revisions so everyone can see
Okay.
prior to the meeting.
Okay. So then the next meeting, the next item on the agenda is the new application. So if I guess I don't have your name yet. What was it?
Benjamin Wyatt.
Benjamin White, if you want to present your application for 530 Chestnut Ridge.
Would. Thank you, Chairman. And I'll speak as loud as I can. For the record, Benjamin Wine, that's W-I-N-E, of the law firm Prime Tuvell and Maselli, on behalf of the applicant. It's kind of a co-applicant, Valley Chabad Incorporated and Valley Chinuch Incorporated. The application before you this evening is for the property located at 530 Chestnut Ridge Road. And for the record, within Woodcliff Lake, that is block 202, lot 4.01, and in your B3 zones. I do want to indicate for the record right off the bat that this is not just a split zone property, it is a split municipality property. So there is I would say about a quarter of the property itself is located within the borough of Montvale. And I'm proud to announce that we did receive a site plan exemption from Montvale last week. And what that means for anybody that's interested is effectively they are not taking jurisdiction over this application. There are no proposed improvements that you'll hear about tonight that are located within the portion of the property within Montvale. So they basically looked at this and said, we don't need to hear this application as long as the Woodcliff Lake Land Use Board does hear this application, which is why we're here this evening. The application. So this evening, we're here to present to you effectively what is a fit out or refit of the existing building located on the property. And I'll go into detail with what that looks like, along with some minor site improvements that go along with the uses that are proposed, existing and proposed within the building. So the first floor of the building is proposed to remain as a synagogue use for the Chabad synagogue that has been there for a couple of years. There is some reorientation of the space, which you'll hear about from our architect. But at the end of the day, it's a synagogue today, and we're looking to keep it as a synagogue. The second floor is leased out to office use. That's McLaren Engineering leases out that space. That will remain unchanged as part of this application. They are not a co-applicant, and we're not proposing any changes to their use at all. And then the third floor, which I would say is the bulk of our application here, we are proposing to use approximately half of that third floor as a preschool affiliated with the Chabad synagogue that's on the ground floor. The other portion of the third floor will remain, again, additional McLaren office space and is not the subject of this application. But the portion that is in question, we are proposing a preschool use, which you'll hear about in detail. Additionally, we're also proposing some exterior improvements. Most of them are minor, including bringing the site up to ADA compliance with respect to the parking, as it's not today. But the biggest one I would say is for the preschool use to incorporate an outdoor playground area for the kids. And that'll take place in the rear of the building, which again, our engineer will go through in detail momentarily. We're here this evening seeking but a single variance, and it's a bulk variance or a C variance, and that's for impervious lot coverage. Just to give you some context, it's 60% is permitted on the property. Today, it's at 77.83%, and we're proposing to increase that to 77.97%. That is a 0.14% increase, which translates to approximately 240 square feet. And again, you'll hear from our engineer as to why we're doing that and where that's ultimately located. So I just want to remind the board, and I know the board is aware, and remind the board, the public, and everybody who might be listening, that again, you're tasked tonight with reviewing from a site plan perspective, whether you feel that our application meets the site plan requirements, whether our uses that we are proposing are ultimately permitted and can be accommodated within the site. You're also required to address, obviously, the variance that I just indicated with respect to the lot coverage. And it's our job to persuade you that the benefits of granting that one item of relief substantially outweigh any detriments of granting that area of relief. And I would just ask you to hear all of our testimony. I would ask the same of the public. I have 5 witnesses I intend to present to you this evening. And Chair, unless you would like to go over kind of the some housekeeping as to how that works, I'll just indicate very quickly for anybody in the public at the conclusion of each witness. Obviously, there'll be an opportunity for anybody from the board, but for anybody from the public to question that witness on his or her testimony. And at the conclusion of the case will be an opportunity for public comment there too. So I think I just did Mr. Gian Antonino's job as well. But with that, the 5 witnesses I intend to call this evening and are in the following order. I would start with Rabbi Dov Drizin, who is the rabbi of the congregation, of the Chabad congregation, and who also will be the director and oversee the preschool component of their operation. He'll speak to the operations of the site today, as well as the proposed operations of the synagogue, but I think more importantly of the preschool as well. I then have Mike Dipple, our project engineer, who's behind me and who will speak to those site improvements I just touched on. We then have Mike Maturo, who's our project architect, who will walk you through how the building is proposed to be laid out visually so that everybody can understand that. We then have John Korak, who is our traffic engineer, and he, ironically, he's the only guy that got here late, so it's always great when your traffic engineer gets stuck in traffic. But I got one joke now. But he will be my 4th witness, and he will address again how these uses kind of interplay, how the site will circulate, the parking availability on the site, and as well as some general trip generation for the board. And finally, we have Harry Tubel, who is our professional planner, who again will walk the board and the public through his justifications for that one variance that I just identified. So unless Chair or members of the board, unless you have any questions of me, I'm happy to proceed with my first witness.
You may proceed.
Thank you. So with that, I'll call up Rabbi Dov Drizin.
Yeah.
You're gonna face the board.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the truth, the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I affirm.
And please just state your name for the record,
My name is Dov Drizin,
if you could spell that.
Drizin.
Thank you.
And Rabbi, unlike what I'm going to do for the witnesses to come, while I know you are an expert and a professional, there's no licensure or credentials that I'm going to ask you to put on the record, but I am going to make the board and public feel comfortable that you're the right witness to speak to the operations of the facility. I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit about who you are and what you do and how the congregation and ultimately the preschool will operate.
Sure. Can I just say that I'm more nervous than a high holiday sermon?
Rabbi, if you want to sit down and get comfortable and eat a glass of water,
I
feel
do.
free.
I would like some water if that's okay.
Here we go.
Thank you so much. I think I'll stand. Thank you. I've been the executive director at Valley Chabad in Wycliffe Lake since May of 2000. And Valley Chabad is a community education outreach center, a Jewish center of Jewish life, but that opens its doors to people of all walks and faiths. It's a simple place of discovery, of learning, that hopes to finally create a home that it can serve its community. In a world that is, fraught with challenge, certainly for the Jewish community, Wycliffe Lake and has proven ultimately to be a wonderful community. And people look to Wycliffe Lake as a beacon of light. And this new property will be able to serve us, serve the community and be a place where children and adults will be able to learn, connect, and express their faith. The proposed site, which I guess you're going to hear in great detail, has everything we need to be able to pray, to study, to congregate, and be a community together. What are the other questions that you want me to answer?
Sure. So now that you've kind of explained who you are and you're under oath, so everything you say is going to be truthful. Can you walk us through how the congregation aspect of Chabad operates today and how it's going to operate should the application be approved and the fit out ultimately occur?
Sure. The operation is, there are, daily, we do a lot of outreach work. We are in every senior home in the community. We have programs in local public schools. So there's a lot of things that are outside of its four walls. Internally, on a regular week, if you would go through a regular week, a Thursday morning has morning prayers from about 7 to 8. On Monday nights, we have a class, a Torah Bible study class. There are series of other classes. There's an all women's study class that will happen in an afternoon or an evening, 10, 12, 13 women. We have children that come every Sunday to Bible studies, Hebrew school.
Do we want to just focus on the daycare?
We can. If
I
that's
think that's
the board's
pretty much
pleasure.
why we're here, and I think we understand how you operate as a Chabad, as a
Right.
place of religion, right? But we're here just to hear the application today with regards to the daycare center.
Sure, no
So
problem.
why don't you focus on the operations of the daycare, how the effects of that are going to be implemented in the area, and what would change on how the building is currently being used versus the way it will be used.
Got it.
Once the
Sure.
daycare may be approved.
Got it. So currently we do not have a daycare. One of the great wishes that many in our community have asked us for is to provide a daycare, a preschool that would be able to provide a stronger Jewish studies program. It's not for little babies. It's I think the age is 2.8 or 2.5. I think that there's a certain that we've niche that we've focused on. Little older kids, toddlers, I would say till I think 4, and to be able to create a space that will grow as the community need grows. We envision kids being dropped off about 9 in the morning. There is a sort of a great place how you can drop off kids and go down a side walkway, and we'll be bringing the kids up the stairs onto the third floor. There is a lobby space and there is a indoor play area. And we have 6 classrooms. Additionally, there's administrative offices on the third floor. And the idea would be, it's about 9 to 3 p.m. There'd probably be, I don't know what the amount of breaks that the kids have, take them downstairs. In good weather, we have an indoor play area and an outdoor play area when the weather permits, for whatever that amount of recess is going to be.
And Rabbi, speaking of the kids, how many kids and how many staff members are you planning this facility out for?
So I think it's I think it can fit like 65 or maybe 68 kids. We envision, 10 kids per classroom. That's would be ideal. It takes some time to get there. Probably a main teacher and an assistant teacher. There'll be a director, and then we have our office manager, and you have the rabbis and the rebbitzins, the female, parts that are in and out. And
So it's fair to say you'd be thinking at maximum occupancy, somewhere between, say, 65 to 70 children in approximately 6 classrooms with approximately 12 to 15 staff members to service those kids.
that sounds about right.
Okay, fair enough. And then in terms of the hours, you touched on it. I think you mentioned 9 to 3. One of the big focuses of this application is obviously the outdoor play area.
Right.
So what hours do you anticipate that kids will be out there all day from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day?
No, I anticipate, kids come and they're brought to their classrooms. I'm not sure the exact time the first break is, but I imagine there's 3 to 4 breaks. Probably, it's twice or 3 times going to, when weather permitting, to be outside.
And you'd be able to stagger the classes going out, so it wouldn't be all 65 kids
No,
at once.
It would not be. The hope would be that it would be staggered. That's what I understand. Probably 1 to 2 classrooms at a time. I don't think it's not a field, so.
Right. Okay, and on the Sabbath, so obviously there's some, and I know we didn't touch on the shul operations, but I presume there are some kids that show up on a Saturday. Would they have access to that yard space as well?
From my perspective, ideally, yes. Kids want to go outside. I know the preschool directors that we spoke to don't want anyone who's not part of the preschool but ideally we would have kids. We have services start at 10 o'clock and we're out of the space by 1:30. So you can envision a space, a time period in there, like the kids program, at 12 o'clock or so, or some period of time.
And they would be supervised by group leaders
Yes,
or counselors
they
or
are.
something to that effect.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then in terms of the playground itself, let's talk about the security as well as why the specific location. I understand we'll hear from the site plan where it's located, but talk to me a little bit about how it's going to be secured and why we're planning to place it where we are.
Right, so that's, it's been even a more recent big discussion that I understand that it was placed, it needs to be where it is because of its proximity to the building. There's safety, how you bring kids in and out, and not having to go into the parking lot. And then we have a whole set of security, unfortunately, in the world we live in. So you want to be able to have the ability to bring kids in, which is part of why we want to build a fence. And I don't know how specific you need me to get, but suffice it to say that being very close to getting into the building for the bathroom and for safety and additionally for security, it makes the most sense to be close to the building.
Yeah, I'd like you not to give away the entire security plan, as that would undermine the purpose of security, but is it fair to say that its location is coordinated through working with the police department, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, and this overall site plan is something that makes sense from a security perspective?
That is clearly my understanding, and I've just even the last couple of days, I was made to understand a little more about that. Sometimes I don't get into the weeds, but then when I asked questions about moving the space, I was shown why it's important.
Okay, and last question about that, about the space specifically. The goal is for this preschool to be licensed as a childcare facility pursuant to the state regulations. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And so is it your understanding that it is required to have outdoor play space as part of that licensure?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit to the other portion of the outside improvements, which really belongs, I think, more to the synagogue use. So that patio that's on the other side, which we'll see momentarily, can you explain to the board what is the purpose of that outdoor patio?
So so currently we have an outdoor patio in the back of the building where staff from our tenant and Chabad staff can go outside. There's about I think there's 4 tables, 2 round tables, 2 long tables, a place for people to go eat lunch. We're moving that so it's not right at the entrance, so you have an easy entrance, and moving that to the south side of the back front of the building. So we're moving that. Additionally, we are proposing to put like a pergola or carport, I don't know what you call it. We have a religious use. It's once a year, but it's a focal point, 8 days a year. We have a holiday called Sukkot. So it will be a parking lot, and then for Sukkot, we'll be able to use that, put bamboos and branches on top and cover it and use it. But that would also, ideally, we would like to, on a Saturday morning after services, we do serve like refreshments. And if it's a nice day, be able to go outside and have refreshments, do the kiddush, which is the blessing of the wine, and to be outside, to have an outside space. And that would provide shade, in the summer, it would be a nice outside space. Now, our seating space is really not it's like under the building, so it's outdoors, it's a nice space. This pergola is really parking except for Sukkot.
Okay, and is it fair to say, I know everyone will laugh when they see the size of it on the plan, but is it fair to say everything to do with that outdoor use is really oriented towards the religious use of the space? It's not going to host weddings, it's not going to host any major events. This is really geared towards religious-based uses ancillary to the synagogue.
Yeah. We do not anticipate any weddings. You would see a small bar bat mitzvah at the space, not the party, the service part. People will go to other event spaces for their parties, but for the service you can have the kiddush after the service. If it fits outside. It's not a huge space, so it's not built, certainly not for a wedding. There's no kitchen in the building, so it's not really designed, it's more of a,
Perfect.
you bring your platters, type of thing.
So you led me to really my last 2 questions for you. So one relates to, you said there's no kitchen. So in terms of deliveries, obviously any type of, small kiddush has food. So walk me through what deliveries you might be expecting here and how frequently. To the site.
You'll be certainly every Friday before Shabbos, we will get a delivery. And if we are having a larger, dinner or, Shabbos dinner, or, you'll have a delivery. There is a nice sized pantry that has a refrigerator and has shelving. You have a place to set it up and then to serve it. So you know, the back, this side of the building, on the south side of the building, there is a aisle. I'm sorry, I should be looking here, and I apologize. On the south side of the building, which you'll see, that same walkway goes straight to that pantry area. Just beyond it is the stairs to go upstairs, but that would probably be the best delivery area, you know.
Okay. And other than that, approximately once per week delivery that you just identified, everything else for, office supply would be your typical Amazon
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, you know,
place.
what-
that come as.
if you had all the space in the world, someone said today you need to build, I mean, even in my house, I need to build a place for all the Amazon boxes, and that pile up, so we have a lobby, we have a table that sits in the vestibule now, that's where it probably will go.
Okay, and then, so two more questions, one relating to trash removal. So I just want to confirm, and this was a question, I believe, in the planner's review letter. How will trash be handled?
We have a service, we have a dumpster, a fairly good sized dumpster, it's behind the gate. And I imagine, I mean, that's the plan, that that dumpster will come, if, right now it's once a week.
Yeah.
And I think that's sufficient, they don't pick up that much now.
But you could, because it's what we call in the industry a private hauler service, to the extent you see that you're generating more trash, you could arrange for multiple pickups per week as needed.
Sure.
Okay, and then my last question, again, without going too far into the security detail, I just want to confirm that there are security personnel on site as well as cameras, and you have no problem working with the police department to accommodate any requests they might have.
I think we have an amazing relationship. The police department here in Woodcliff Lake has been amazing. They've gone above board. They're incredibly responsive. We do hire, unfortunately, we're not allowed to hire our Woodcliff Lake security guards and the police, which we did for many years when we were allowed to because of our grants. But we do hire retired cops, New Jersey cops, who are our security every time we have a program, and that's a part of our reality. And we will gates and cameras and a lot of other stuff that will make sure that there's security. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so Chairman, I have nothing further operationally for Rabbi Drizin at this time.
Any board members have any questions for the witness?
I just have one quick question. Sure. The kids that you foresee that are gonna come to the daycare center, where are they now and where are they coming from? What the growing population within the?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Our constituency, 100% of our constituency lives in the Pascagoula Valley. And that's, where they're coming from. I think Valley Chabad has developed a name for that it's a good place, and I think those who are looking for, there's a lot of different places to go. This will offer those who are looking for this will, but yes, our
Mainly some of your constituents is where the.
right. So I think just to the broader point, it's just to use your question. Our community lives locally, and it's important to know that it's not a community that comes from anywhere else. It's locals.
That's a quick question. Is the preschool currently, do you have accreditation? Are you seeking accreditation? And if you are seeking it and don't get it, are you still gonna move forwards with the preschool?
So in order to seek accreditation, you really have to have the facility
Right.
to do it.
So-
So we plan to seek it once it's there. We do not currently have a preschool, and there should be no reason why we don't get it. And whatever we have to do to work with the powers that be to make sure we get it.
The hours of operation Monday through Friday or Saturday?
No, just Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday,
Right.
9 to 3.
And there will be during winter times on Fridays, we because of the Shabbos, because of the Sabbath, we'll close earlier. Okay. 9 to 12 probably. And other holidays.
Go ahead, I was.
So, one of those. Pull up, you'll have teachers waiting there, the teachers will get them out of the car. So you're not looking for a ton of extra parking spaces at the same time. You see it more as the kids being taken from their car and brought up to the classroom.
What we've witnessed, we've viewed a number of different preschools, how they do it, and what we've witnessed that works well. Is where you have all your staff, they got walkie-talkies, they know the parents, they know the kids, the car has like number 12 on it, number 2. It's a pretty long driveway that, you know, that you can get in and out of, and.
Right, so for drop off, there's a long queue
Right.
where if it took time to get the children out of the car and get in, the cars could stack up.
Exactly. We do not want them to park. In fact, we probably, you know, unless you're, you know, there's some designated parking if you got to go speak to the principal, but keep the flow and movement.
Right.
And there's enough space with where the entrance is gonna be located that you're not expecting traffic, the cars to back up onto Chestnut Ridge Road.
Not at all. Absolutely not.
And I'm assuming you'll have testimony with regards to all the parking and everything,
Assuming our traffic engineer made it here.
if he makes it.
We will.
Alright.
Actually, that leads to one follow-up question, and which again, the traffic engineer will go in more detail, but say there was a queue that was backing up a little bit. You know, would you have a staff member come out and perhaps direct traffic to bypass or anything like that to ensure that you don't back up to Chestnut Ridge Road?
Absolutely. I think there's a considerable enough space that everything will be, you know, that it won't even.
The rear of the.
It will be at the rear of the building, and you can loop around. There's 3 bays that you can, if you had to, you know, if there's for some reason that you would direct traffic in a way that there would not be a lineup.
I just want to make sure, because I know that's something that as the board can, you know, weigh when they're discussing the site plan. It's if there is a traffic concern, is there an option to bypass it?
I don't know the science, I guess, but you know, sort of when I've just watched it, we've had events there, I've watched the drop-offs and pickups. We've never had an issue.
I will just say, as a parent of someone in daycare, they do it so much better than any other organization in terms of getting traffic certain. So
And
Yeah,
I've witnessed
it
that.
will. Perfect.
Anything from our professionals?
Have you had any discussions, this is David Trost, planner, have you had any discussions with the state of New Jersey about this site? At least preliminarily, a lot of times you can get have them do a pre-look and say, is it worth it or is it not?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I can ask the architect because I know they know certain standards that are good.
Oh, you're talking about for the licensing?
Yes.
Oh, we have done mounds of research and our architect has done.
I'll ask the architect,
Right,
'cause
okay.
he's the one that's gonna be on the spot.
Right,
If
Yeah.
you don't get it, you're gonna have to yell at him.
yes, you're right. So
So
our architect is fantastic and he is on top of all those details.
It is a specialty and
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've reviewed many of these applications, so it's.
All right, we'll leave that for the architect.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? If we can get a motion to open up for cross-examination of the witness from the public.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? All right, so members of the public, you have the opportunity to come up and ask the witness any questions you may have about his testimony or about the application. Just please step up, state your name.
K.
Town.
Otz.
You have to spell that.
K-O-T-Z.
First name K-A-Y.
K-A-Y. And this is.
Montvale? Woodcliff Lake?
My building is in Montvale.
Okay, just curious. I know
Building
you-
3.
a lot of you are right on the
Yeah,
borders.
building 2 is in Woodcliff Lake.
Okay.
My only question for what you just said, I have many other issues, but your drop off, explain to me, because right now you have 2 big boats on blocks on the side that's closest to Whole Foods. Is that the door where you anticipate the children being dropped off?
So great question. Our plan, as you'll see, is that place where the boats are is probably going to be gated off. And so that there's no access, it's, you know, that's the plan, to no access to for any children or any cars, so in consideration of safety. And I think there'll be testimony to it, but the drop off will come down the north side of the building, go towards the south, and then loop around the last bay of parking and come back out.
So if you
Rabbi,
say
do
come
you wanna
down,
maybe,
yeah,
do you have an image that you could just throw up so you
Sure.
could explain to them a little bit? I know that
when you say come down, come down.
I'm gonna
so-
show it to you.
Okay, perfect, because I'm not clarified on that. And are the boats remaining in the parking lot? I don't think.
They're-
I'll address that. Yeah, so a couple of things, Dan, and Rabbi, stay right there.
Okay.
'Cause You're not done on the hot seat,
Okay.
but to address a couple of those questions, again, I'm just a lowly attorney, but I will tell you, we will have our engineer explain how the drop off will work. When he walks through his plan momentarily, and in terms of the boats, it was a comment in the board planner's letter that the board planner doesn't believe that those are permitted to be there. They are part of the McLaren office that's in the building right now. So to the extent that they're not permitted to be there, then that's obviously something that will have to get dealt with, but it's not, yeah, we're not proposing anything specific with boats for children as part of this application. Though now that I say it out loud, I don't think I'm fine.
So I want to be very clear, show me the side where the door is on the side where the children will come in. Get dropped off.
So what we'll do then before that, if it's okay, Mr. Jan Antonino, we should probably have this marked and I'll have our. Yes, we're gonna call this A1 and our engineer will enter it into evidence formally and will speak to it. But it is a colorized site plan, colorized copy of what you have in your packages here today, so it's colorized for demonstrative purposes. And we will, Rabbi, to the extent that you want to answer the question by referring to it, this is A1.
You have a date?
Date is. It is today, all right. April 28th.
So you want me to
Yeah,
answer?
so,
Or
do you wanna
Show everybody, everybody.
show everybody how to drop off?
So.
See it.
Okay, so the idea would have to have, this is a double lane drive aisle, cars come down. Make a right. It's back of the building, this is the walkway within, and it's an overhang, it's a protected walkway. To have the drop off and pickup come to this corner of the building, which is the
southeast.
southeast corner of the building, and then to come around all the way to the back here and come back out onto Chestnut Ridge.
I need some clarification here. Show me where, if this is the back of the building, I know where the front is, your front parking lot says McLaren, it has the menorah up. The side where Whole Foods is, show me that.
This is the side of.
So they're coming out on this side,
Correct.
abutting up to Whole Foods? No,
Yes, yes.
you're saying, one's saying no, one's saying yes.
Wait.
So
The Whole
Excuse me.
Foods side.
Well, the engineers will give you the finite details. The rabbi is just giving you the flow of how the drop off is gonna be. What I think he testified to is that they're gonna be dropped off at the corner of the building, not on the property line by Whole Foods. But the corner, the southeast corner of the building, right there.
Cars will come.
This is all the front.
That's the back of the building.
Yeah.
Where? Shown where
Where the boats are?
Yeah, where's the boat?
So I think what we'll do, we could, I think, Rabbi, I think what we'll do is, if it's okay, let's reserve these questions for the engineer. We'll just be better able to help orient everyone, I think.
That's fine.
The rabbi's done a great job, but his expertise is not in site plans.
Anyone else have any questions or cross-examine the witness?
I do have a couple more, just the things that you noted. You said you get deliveries prior to Shabbos starting on Friday night. I am assuming since you do a kiddush luncheon or some kind of kiddush after Saturday morning services, that all the food is delivered prior to Shabbos starting, correct? Okay. You said that the pergola is supposed to be a permanent. Well, am I allowed to discuss this now? Because you brought it up, but I didn't know.
You can cross-examine the witness based on his testimony at this point. We'll have open comment at the end.
The pergola, you said would hold cars parking if and when it was the service, when it's not being used.
Correct.
How many car spaces would fit under the pergola?
The,
We'll have the engineer address that. It's, yeah, more of a site question.
All right. Okay, I guess that's it for now, but Rabbi, you denoted your position as executive director. But you were the rabbi of the synagogue, so you're both rabbi slash, I just want to clarify that. And
and witness today.
I don't feel like I'm not playing cross examine like to be mean or anything. I'm Jewish. I have had a lot of people here in this room are Jewish and have no objections to a synagogue next door to Four Seasons or Bishma.
Know
I
that,
have-
a lot of friends in this room, so I know that.
But I have a lot of objections to what's going on in the back parking lot. My building happens to back up to your back parking lot, which I paid quite a bit of money extra for to have my site fixed.
Okay.
Okay, all right. How many members do you, on the average, I know it differs Friday to Saturday night, how many people arrive for services Friday nights and Saturday mornings? About?
Currently Friday night, thank you, about 12 to 15 people, and on a Shabbat Saturday morning, anywhere between 30 and 50 on a regular basis.
Thank you.
And any other members of the public have anything for the witness?
I think, Chairman, that I think you people from our residency are probably gonna be waiting for the public comment section.
Okay.
And we're also anxious to hear the traffic engineer is becoming.
Yeah, they're gonna go through all the different, I think the attorney, the applicant had expressed the order that they're gonna go in.
I think you'll hear from.
Okay. So seeing no other further questions for the witness, motion to close to the public,
You're right.
all in favor?
And for the record, this counts as my high holiday sermon for 2026.
Well done.
So with that, I'll call up our next witness, which is our civil engineer, Mike Dipple, and I'll switch sides with you. Word.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name again for the record.
It's Michael Dipple, D-I-P-P-L-E.
And Mike, if I'll qualify.
I'll close it. He's already been before the board, so.
Thank
he's
Your
qualified.
license is in good standing tonight?
It's in good standing. Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
So we're accepting this witness as an expert witness in civil engineering?
Civil engineering, correct. So Mike, can you please walk us through the site as it exists today and ultimately what we're
Yeah.
Can I
proposing?
just ask, while I'm doing that, can you just turn a bit so we can see it on the side?
Sure.
So I'm gonna start with another exhibit, which is an aerial photograph of the property. That's the subject of this application. I'm gonna call this A2 since we already marked A1. With today's date of 4/28/26, and what the aerial photograph, which is upside down. Depicts is the property in the middle, which is 530 Chestnut Ridge Road. It's a 3-story office building. To the north is the Four Seasons residential complex. To the south is the shopping center, which includes the Whole Foods Market. On the west side, this image is true to north, so the top of the page is north. Chestnut Ridge Road runs on the west side of the property. which runs in roughly a north-south direction. You have commercial office on the other side. And you have the Garden State Parkway to the east. And of course, what this doesn't depict is generally the municipal boundary kind of runs in a diagonal that I trace there with my line. Roughly, so the front or the west side of the property is in Woodcliff Lake, which contains the building, and then the northeast corner is in the borough of Montvale, which only includes the parking. The site has currently 213 parking spaces. There is one access driveway, which is ingress and egress, full movement driveway, which is in the northwest corner of the site onto Chestnut Ridge Road. I'm sure we'll hit more on that, but that just is to orient the board to the subject property. I'm gonna go back to A1. Which is. That is not part of the testimony. So I'm back to exhibit A1. So A1 depicts again the existing building, which is in this peach color. There are no changes to the existing building. It's not being increased in footprint. It's not being changed the number of stories or anything. It's really only being refit out in some areas of the building. The first floor and then the third floor. And if you looked at this little diagram I have here, this is the third floor, which the west side of that will remain office, so the majority will remain office. And then the east side, which is here in this gray portion, will be where the 6 preschool classrooms would be. The core of the building is kind of in the middle where the elevators and stuff are, so that is common space to both tenants, McLaren and Valley of Us. So you can see here, again, we've depicted the site. The gray is the parking, obviously. The surrounding it is some wooded kind of landscaping. The building's been around for a little bit, so you see a little bit of growth in there. You see some very mature landscaping. What we do show here are a number of trees throughout the parking lot. We definitely feel that could be enhanced, and that's going to come up in my testimony. But I think the biggest feature and the one that has got probably the most of the discussion is the playground. That's in the northeast corner of the existing building. So it's shown here in a light green color. And if you look at my site plan, you can get a better picture. I have a few more exhibits too of the playground and how that's going to look. Currently, there are 9 parking spaces in that area, and they are configured head into the building. There are 9 parking spaces. The application is to remove those 9 parking spaces and construct the playground in that northeast corner. Regarding the carport or pergola, or the sukkah during Sukkot, that would be located in the southeast corner. There are currently 7 parking spaces there. Those 7 parking spaces would remain, and the carport would go over top of it. The patio that the rabbi was referring to is located here against the building. One of the features of this building, and you'll see it in some of my later exhibits, is that there's an overhang. So the top 2 floors are overhang the lower floor, which is a little bit small. So those tables are located underneath that overhang. And I think the rabbi was explaining that doesn't really feel like outdoor space. It's kind of underneath that overhang. And this would provide the outdoor space. During Sukkot, when they would use this for outdoor activities, we've provided a number of little movable planters, and you'll see those in the exhibit. So those planters would be back to protect the people dining, not during the holiday. And those spaces would be active. During the holiday, those planters would be moved out to the very end of the parking spaces. It would just reduce the parking count by 7 spaces. And this would become that outdoor area, that seating area, below the pergola. And they can be slid back and forth, as needed. In terms of the entry for the students, that's already been a question that's come up. So the rabbi did explain it well. Vehicles coming in to drop the children off would enter through the ingress egress driveway in the northwest corner off of Chestnut Ridge Road. Proceed in an easterly fashion along the north side. They would continue along the east side of the building in a southerly direction to the very end where they could drop the children off. And there is a sidewalk which is below an overhang, and that would allow them entry into the building. So that's what we were referring to. There's a grade difference there, so there would be no way for anyone to exit the building and come out in a southerly direction toward the Whole Foods or toward the drive aisle or anything like that. It's a significant grade change, but this allows access along the south side of the building. So that's located here, and I know that people want to see that. I'm just going to turn the rendering a little bit and say that's where the children would walk into the building that the rabbi was referring to on the south side.
Why don't you just show that to the public? I think that's.
Sorry, I tried to, but that.
Somebody held it for you.
That's here along the south side of the building. The drive out here is much higher than that. There's a retaining wall there. So the children will be led in to the building along the south side. During services, the main entry is right here in the middle of the building. And again, I've got a few more renderings coming up. And that's where the majority of the people would enter for the religious services, which would take place on the first floor. And as the rabbi mentioned, during those services, some of the little children may be attracted to the playground. The parents might not mind that they're going to the playground. So during those services, there could be some children out at the playground, but it's not really planned and organized play. It's more of just to appease the children during the services. So I'm going to give a few more images of what goes on behind the building. So I'm going to start with a rendering. Now, these were kind of the concept drawings, so they're not by my office, but we use these concept drawings in order to produce the engineering plan. So they have no name on them, but they were provided to us. This is what.
And Mike, how many of them will you be showing?
I have 3.
So, I mean, if it pleases the board, we can mark A3 as a 3-sheet rendering set. Is that?
If they're separate, I don't know how he's got them in the package here, but.
We can mark them individually. Okay, so.
Would be an aerial image looking at the rear entrance of the building. So I'm going to date that also 4/28/26. And this image is looking at the rear of the building. So you can see the playground on the right side of the image. You can see a fence around it. We have some of those planters that are situated in between some deciduous trees. So we're lining the playground with the deciduous trees. This is the main entrance into the rear of the building. Here's the overhang that you can see. So you can see the first floor is recessed a bit. And then if you come over here to what would be the southeast side of the building, you can see this pergola, and you're going to hear more about that from our architect. And then you can see the tables situated underneath the overhang and those movable planters that I was referring to, and those parking spaces. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct those parking spaces with a paver surface so that during use of that as outdoor dining or whatever during the holiday, it's a more walkable surface than an asphalt surface. So there will be improvement here. We note that in our plan. So that's one of the images I have of the rear of the building. And that's A3. A4. A4, I'm gonna date it also 4/28/26. And this is just a lower perspective view of that dining area, just to describe the pergola and the movable. Sorry.
I figured I was showing the public.
Yeah.
Put it on the floor.
Let them pass it around if they want.
We could pass it around.
Yes. And the movable planters. And then I believe as the rabbi mentioned, here's the outdoor, like the outdoor little kitchen with the grill. And that's what you would typically see in a residential setting with, you know, on a deck or patio or something like that. And would allow them to prepare some foods out on the south side of this area here. So you have those parking spaces, which would be the pavers, the pergola above. Right, and then you have the playground in the distance there on the right side of the image. Okay, and you can again see the overhang of the building. The second and third floors are flush. And then one last image, which is A5, and it's just kind of redundant again. I didn't know how much traction this was gonna get, but dated today, A5 is then more of an aerial of the overall improvement area, which includes the parking spaces, the pergola, the playground, the entrance, and everything I've described to date. And you can see the building in this white space continues on. Okay, so that is, those are my images that our office used to prepare the site plan. So in my I'm going to refer to the site plan set, and Mr. Chairman, I assume I'm not marking this. This was the set that was submitted to the board. So it is dated January 30th, 2026. There are no revisions. It's entitled Preliminary and Final Site Plan, Valley Chabad Inc., Partial Building Conversion and Site Improvements. Okay. So just for a little bit of housekeeping, it's a 4-acre site. We have one coverage variance that we're referring to. That we're requesting here. So in the rear of the building, there's if you can see it from where you're sitting, there's a red shaded area. That area is the part of the site that would be removed. There are some incidental features I'll refer to in a minute, but that's generally where the activity takes place. I go to sheet CO3. This is my site plan. I show under Woodcliff Lake zoning table, we are in compliance. And Mr. Trost did reach out to me prior to issuance of his letter. And we discussed coverage and the definition that Woodcliff Lake uses for coverage. And I agreed that the playground surface, the artificial playground surface would increase the coverage. So it's the 0.14%, which equates to about 244 square feet, I believe, is that increase in coverage. We don't think it has any impact in stormwater management. It'll probably be a better surface for absorbing water. But the fact is that I agree that that increases the coverage in this site slightly out of compliance with your code in terms of coverage. So the 0.14% requires a C variance, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to seek relief for that very de minimis increase in coverage. And that actually occurs between the overhang of the building and the parking. So if I go back to my existing conditions plan, there's a small space, which is probably about 7 or 8 feet, which runs along the front of those parking spaces. And when I convert that to pavement or to the playground surface, I'm technically increasing the coverage. In terms of parking, we have 213 parking spaces there. We're reducing the parking by 9 spaces when we construct the playground. And by your ordinance, and I think your professionals agree with me that this site would require 171 parking spaces if it were approved to be the uses that we're presenting here tonight. So we're at 171 required. We are proposing a total of 204 when we reduce the 9. Your engineer is 100% correct that we need 2 more ADA spaces, so I'd probably lose 1 more space with the striped area. I'm gonna request 203 proposed parking spaces. So the comparison is still 203 to 171. So we're still exceeding the requirement by 32 parking spaces. We're seeking no other relief that we're aware of from your code. There was some discussion about the fence. The applicant is proposing a fence to surround the rear portion of the site. Along the north side, adjacent to the Four Seasons, it would be a 6-foot-high decorative aluminum fence, which is typically has the vertical members. And I should say that at the Four Seasons on their property, we've seen the 4-foot-high aluminum fence. Of very similar to what is being proposed along the north side. Along the Garden State Parkway, the applicant is proposing a chain link fence of 6 foot high. Just along the Garden State Parkway. When the fence wraps around the southern side, it will also be a decorative aluminum fence. Identical to the one on the north side. The fence will tie into the existing building. I'm gonna propose one change because your fire department noticed that we were going around the fire hydrant that's behind one of the gates. So we're going to change the fence location back by approximately 50 feet or so in order to make sure that not only the hydrant, but also the fire department connection are clear, and it gives, in case of an emergency, it gives the fire department plenty of place to set up there. So that is, yes,
Sorry, could you just repeat that, because you addressed their letter?
I did, yeah, I have their letter in front of me,
Okay.
but one of the requests was that we should not block off any hydrants behind the gate, so. There will be a gate, which will have a Knox box, which gives them key access. But I agree with the fire department that. If they want to get to the hydrant quickly or the fire department connection, they don't have to go to the Knox box and open up the gate. They should be able to access this immediately. So we looked at that and said, all we need to do is just bring the fence back a little bit. So that's what we're intending to do, is just to bring the gate and the fence back. Roughly, let's say about 50 feet.
Okay.
On the south side, we have 2 gates. There's one that is kind of consistent with the rear of the building, going in a southerly direction toward the Whole Foods. That would be one rolling gate there, and then there's one at the front. That's the area that McLaren Engineering may use for some of their equipment. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit. We've already heard some discussion about some of the boats or the craft that are there, so I'm just gonna hold on to that discussion, but that's the location where that would go. Again, if you recall, the circulation pattern doesn't actually impact those gates. So I'm gonna go back to exhibit A1, and I'm just gonna trace my finger again along the circulation patterns in on the north side, down south to where the drop off is in the morning, continuing to the left, back to the north, and then back out to Chestnut Ridge. So the gate would be placed at the southeast corner of the building, would not be impacted by the circulation. There's no opening, there's no movement of those gates on the south side. During the drop off, the gate would be open for parents to come in. And you can see from that movement, there's plenty of distance to. You're gonna hear more from the traffic engineer, but when we do a lot of schools and other facilities that need drop off, it could even be a fast food restaurant. This has an incredible distance for drop off, and that is nowhere as frequent as some of those other uses.
I mean,
And that can always be modified.
we don't allow food restaurants for some of these
I'm
reasons.
aware, we're not proposing, so, thanks, yes.
Did you tell me where those boats are?
So
That actually has, that's a significant question.
Is it in Wolf Lake or Monmouth right now?
So it's, I think they're mostly in Woodcliff Lake. So I was there, at the end of, when we appeared in front of Mondale, so it must have been last week. I stopped in again. I know McLaren Engineering very well. We're friendly with them. They do marine engineering. It's pretty impressive, some of the work that they do. They definitely require craft. They store the craft here. I can't tell you, this applicant, I know is the property owner, but I can't tell you more about those boats other than there are craft that are there. They're not recreational boats at all.
I was
They're not.
hoping you were gonna say they were in the neighboring town.
Yeah, me too.
Are they taking up parking spaces
They are,
currently?
yes, they
So
are.
and do you know how many parking spaces they're currently?
I would say I probably witnessed, now there are, you know,
Are
they
these-
use.
If you don't mind me asking, are these like your typical engineer, dive boats?
Yes, they look, now, they're not like the inflatable ones, but
No,
they're.
Flat decked,
Yes.
small cabin.
Yes, yes.
Engineer-
They
engineer-
say engineering, they say McLaren Engineering Group on them. I looked at that because, I hadn't been here in a while and I didn't take notice of the boats. So when I went back, I was wondering if this was recreational, people were storing boats here. Absolutely.
That's actually what I.
And you know how many roughly are they're storing?
I would, I didn't count them, but I would say there's probably 6 to 8, maybe 8 boats back there. They're small craft. They're on trailers. They're.
Property manager.
And sorry, and so we don't know exactly how many spaces, but if they are, like they're display boats, so I'm assuming that they are looking to keep them, but then that is, they are taking up parking spaces, so then. would
They've
be-
got plenty. They're way over parked anyway.
I
That's
should say that, they, the room between the proposed gate is more than sufficient to store those boats.
Right.
So in this location, we have 18 parking spaces.
And was the intent to secure them in that location for two purposes besides just, from security point of view and let's say traffic point of view, but it also in essence hides them slightly from the residents to the north?
I think that's a good way to put it. Yes, that is exactly it. It moves them upwards, so doesn't impede the circulation that we talked about. It also provides the shield from the building itself.
And to the south, you have Whole Foods.
The south, we have the Whole Foods shopping center,
Right,
with the
right.
shopping center with the Whole Foods, yes. So that area would be sufficient. They definitely park some of the vehicles, some of their company vehicles there, but I don't think there's an issue with that. I don't think overnight parking in an office is prohibited, but.
And Mike, to Miss Marsh's question, right? It's approximately, I mean, you said we're about 32 parking spaces over parked per the code.
Yes.
Are we concerned that those boats will take up anywhere near that 32 parking spaces?
No, I think this area alone with the vehicles and the boats gives them plenty of room for circulation. I mean, they're not really putting the boats exactly in between the 9-foot spaces. They're just kind of lining them up. Actually, they're kind of in on an angle. The night that I was there, they're in on an angle so they could bring them in and out. But it's clearly work vehicles. I can say that it clearly looked like, those types of vehicles that had their name on every one. Yeah. Okay. So, going back to my plan set, we talked about zoning and compliance. So I'm just going to continue on through the plan set to complete my affirmative testimony. In terms of grading, we have very minimal grading of kind of following the existing drainage patterns. Underneath this parking lot is a very significantly sized stormwater management system. I have the plans from when it was built. I meant to check the date and I forgot, but probably sometime 80s, 90s, I think this looks like this facility was constructed. And there is a large underground system there for stormwater management that discharges across the Garden State Parkway. There's a pipe that goes underneath the Garden State Parkway, so however that is controlled, it discharges to the east into the borough of Montville. In terms of landscaping, We are proposing the landscaping that I showed in the images of the playground, which the deciduous trees around the playground area, there are 6 of them. And we're also enhancing the existing landscaping that is in the parking lot. So when we arrived to the site, we noticed that a lot of the trees that were in the parking lot over time just have either died or have fallen down, whatever happened to them. So what you do see is a number of trees throughout the parking lot to replace those existing trees. There were some stumps there. There were places where you could clearly see that there was a tree there and just and probably just probably died out or fell down. So that our landscaping plan replaces those trees. We are not proposing any lighting improvements. The existing lighting would remain. We're only eliminating parking spaces. We're not illuminating the playground in any way. You heard the rabbi talk about, kids coming out there sometime late morning, mid-morning, 10 o'clock, maybe being out there to 1:30. And then the end of the day is at 3, so there is no reason for any illumination of that playground. So the existing lighting, we believe, is sufficient. And then I just have soil erosion and sediment control. We will require soil erosion and sediment control from the Bergen County Soil Conservation District. We have received exemption from Bergen County Planning. They took no interest in our application. So we do have an exemption letter from Eric Timzak.
Are you moving a lot of soil?
No, but we're disturbing more than 5,000
You are
square
disturbing
feet, so that would kick us into a soil conservation approval. Yeah. We haven't applied for that yet. We would usually do that as we get closer to construction.
And Mike, thank you. I really have one question for you. You mentioned in terms of site disturbance, is it fair to say from an engineering perspective, the way you laid out the improvements we're making in the rear of the building are done, obviously you heard the rabbi talk about for security reasons, practicality reasons, but are they done in a way that provides the least amount of grading change or disturbance as possible?
It does. We're really working within the backside of that parking, which faces the building up to the face of the building, and then a little bit of improvement around the corner in order to make sure that we get enough room for all the activities in the playground, and that's it. Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further for Mr. Dipple.
I just have a quick question on the amount of space. I know that you had a drawing originally. I don't know if it was the one of the first. What's the square footage roughly on the 3rd floor that this space is occupied?
So I think the architect, let me see if my.
Just a
plans
rough
show
idea.
that.
It doesn't have to be
I think I
exact.
have. It's about a little over 6,000.
That's.
No, sorry, 8,000.
8,000. Okay.
It's a
The
little over
architect will have more detail on it. I just wanted a rough idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Square footage.
I don't know if I have the square footage, but I.
We'll open for cross and you can ask him.
I
Right.
I have.
I want to make sure he's done with his testimony and then we're going to ask him some questions and then we'll open to the public.
Okay, do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
All right.
You can tell the board. Yeah.
It's 75 feet long, it's about 32 feet wide, and this little extension over here is 35 feet long by about 15. So I didn't do those numbers before I came, but I can,
3,000 square feet.
yeah, I think that's a good estimate.
Golf bath.
The old days, we would have to use a slide rule.
All right, so any other questions from the board?
The playground is approximately 3,000 square feet.
That's pretty close.
Absolutely, you're 29.25 I got when I did my math.
Can you speak of the surface in the playground?
It's a rubberized play surface. We haven't specified it yet, but I know your engineer wants me to include a detail. So when we drill down to some of those little pieces, like the footings of the play stuff and everything, we're going to spec something, but it will be a rubberized play surface that meets the standards for fall protection. So it'll have a shock pad underneath it. So children at the highest level, if they were to fall, they would be protected.
Will it be pervious?
It will allow water to drain through it, yes.
Drink
Yeah.
through.
Yes. I believe so, yes.
So are you counting that square footage as part of your lot coverage?
Yes. We are, that's the variance.
Yeah, that was,
0.1
that was the question of the planner and we're discussing with regards to the overage of the 0.14 square, which is 200 square feet on a,
Yeah.
on a 4 acre lot.
It's
200
diminished.
square feet, right?
Yeah.
But even if you included, 50% of that as impervious, like if we were doing the blacktop, that's that's, I don't know what they call that, but the blacktop that drains. They use like a 50% coverage on that or something like that. You would be under from the impervious coverage overall.
Are you counting the pergola area as part of the coverage that you're seeking?
That's all blacktop now, I think. The only thing that they took out was there's a apron.
But it's a
of
permanent
lawn.
structure and they're looking to add a barbecue area, so it does seem like, yeah, you can move those things back and forth, but it does seem like you're adding an outdoor patio.
No, we are counting it.
Yeah,
That is included in
so
the.
that's
yeah.
my question.
Yes.
So just to clarify, you have a paver parking area,
Yeah.
right? It's got a pergola, but that's immaterial because water goes through it, okay? You have a paver surface.
Yes.
And you have a rubberized play surface.
Yeah.
And the entire square footage is calculated in your number.
I
So
believe
there's
so.
no discount from that. So you're off by 0.14.
Yes.
If anyone was to take discounts, you would probably be under the 0.1.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Just so you know, there are parking spaces here today that we're eliminating those and putting in place. And that building overhang comes all the way out. You can see it here. It sticks out, I would guess, it's about 10, 11 feet.
Could you pull up I don't know what it was, A2, the
overhang of the
image,
building.
not that one, the image existing?
The photo.
It's covered by the building,
So
right?
you can see
Yeah.
that slight green strip that's between the edge of the parking and the building.
That's
It's
what-
right-
By removing that strip,
Yeah,
they built this to the number.
yes.
And by removing that 250 square foot of grass strip, they're now over by 0.14.
That's the way we see it.
If they converted 2 parking spots and made it grass.
Yeah, they could put a grass lawn in the
Yeah,
back.
you could convert 1 or 2 parking spots,
Yeah.
put lawn on it and you'd be, and you're done.
You would be as of right.
And we,
Yeah, so-
and we could do that. We talked about it when we got that letter from Mr. Prost.
The scope here, that's how close they are.
Like that
Right,
gray
yeah.
area
Do it.
likely has drainage.
We felt
to it,
keeping
but
the
they're not
parking spaces
including
as better.
The ordinance doesn't allow to include that.
So you
You could take that consideration that there is some drainage through that, you could take that as part of your.
But because
Weighing
the
of the
ordinance doesn't mention it as being allowed, it's prohibited.
Yes,
Right.
so, but you could take that testimony as part of your reasoning.
Well,
to
understood, yeah,
obstruct
yeah.
the way.
Yeah, mitigating factor
Yeah.
towards the
All right,
variance.
I just want to make sure that wasn't already discussed. That's my.
any other questions from the board?
I got a couple, please.
All right. You got a couple, go ahead, you
Yeah,
go
if you could
first.
just for the ADA, you're doing 5+1?
We're doing 7, so
You did 7.
2, there are 5 on my plan. We added 2 in the front, and I agree with Mr. Curtis that it should be 7. So we will strategically place those. We usually put them where the demand is biggest, but we really don't see a lot of office parking. So we'll work and figure out the best space, and they need to be 2% maximum in all directions. And so we'll make sure that we get a good spot.
Right, and just 2 other questions. The pergola is connected to the building?
It is not.
Is not connected. Okay, so no sprinkler required then. And then finally, can you just explain as those cars pull around
Yes.
for the drop off, and you can even do it on here. On the plan that we have doesn't show like the wooded coverage, which might be better from the satellite view. Will the trees that exist block headlights from shining into the residential areas on the far side?
Okay, so coming in, they would proceed to the east, and then as they pass through and then come this way.
Right, so when they're coming up and then
Yeah.
turning, is
Right.
there enough coverage in your opinion that?
I think there's quite a ravine there, especially in the back. It drops significantly, then you can see the retaining wall, so they're about level when it comes together, you compare one surface to the other. There's a ravine there with a lot of wooded area and trees. But I should say this drop off will be between 9 and 3, so yeah, I don't know. It's not a nighttime operation, and you heard the rabbi talk about. The Saturday services would be, they come at 9 or 10-ish and they're gone by 1:30. So we're not really proposing a lot of nighttime operation, but it is an active parking lot now for an office building, which they work like me, you're clearly leaving at night and you would clearly shine lights into that. So we are not doing.
Any other questions from the board? Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple. The barbecue station, is that gas or propane?
I think it would be gas. I don't think it'd be propane, I think. Oh, it would be. I'm sorry. Okay, apparently I'm running a gas service. It's propane, so it would have to be
Propane?
filled, yeah.
And would you need any bollards like adjacent to the parking space to protect it or?
Well, we have those. We could add, it is also our ADA access. So I'm gonna bring up again, exhibit A1. So
Maybe something?
this is where the children are dropped off through that, the striped area for the ADA space. And then continue on around the little barbecue station. That's just kind of shown there schematically, I'm not so sure exactly where that would go, but. It is a flush curve, it's not a raised curve, but I suppose that,
Propane. The fire department commented about propane storage in their letter as well, so.
Okay, so they'll have to address that.
it's typically stored underneath, so it wouldn't be the bottle out, it would be inside the little kitchenette. So I think that would give it a little more protection, but.
What's the distance between the corner of the building and the barbecue station?
Well, it's schematic, so I'm showing it.
I'm hoping you're gonna tell me at least 5 feet.
It's definitely, well, it will be 5 feet, so this is a 20 scale plan and I'm showing it. About 6 feet, so, but we can make sure that there's access, we can push that barbecue station out.
Okay.
And then the other question was. Like the boat pen on the south side, that's the whole purpose of that area?
We're now naming it the boat pen.
It's
The vote.
Does it, I guess my question is, does it need to be that big and was there any considerations? Could it be somewhere else that doesn't obstruct the driveway? I don't know.
I think the part about this is it gives McLaren the ability to park their employees in the front, and then again, this is where they are right now, but there are gates. I mean, there is circulation through the area now. The boats are located currently today in the back.
So that gets opened up, you're saying?
As of tonight, they were parallel to the.
So is McLaren's entrance mainly through the front of the building?
Yes.
And when this is, when these gates are up, in essence, that will isolate McLaren to the front half of the
Yeah.
building and the Chabad to the rear half of the building.
Yeah, that's correct, and I'm sorry if we missed that point, but it
So that's
does,
probably why they're putting the boat pen there, so they have access to it from their parking lot.
yes.
It just obstructs the circulation around the building. That's the only.
Again, I don't know if the boats are gonna be in the drive aisle.
I think this is an area, now they park them here, some of
Yeah.
them are a little bit longer, they go into that, but I would say that I think that is a very good area because you do have full circulation in the parking area in order to park.
But from a fire lane point of view, are they gonna be,
Understood.
they wouldn't be impeding the drive aisle for a fire truck to get around the building,
Understood.
right?
So I think we would make sure that they don't impede that area for fire circulation.
We're telling them to put it at a marina, one of you.
That could be signed and that could be enforced, but correct,
Keep them there in the
Yeah.
winter.
I know a marina they can put. All
yes.
right, could we open for cross?
I just
You have another one.
Just quickly, I'm sure it'll come up more in the traffic study, but so do you know what time that the McLaren employees come in? Because we're anticipating, so you said the school will be about 65 to 70 kids, hopefully when it's all filled. And let's say that their siblings, right? So you're expecting to have what, like 30 cars coming in in the morning. So we're gonna have cars coming on from south on Chestnut Ridge,
Yeah.
from north on Chestnut Ridge. From south, they're gonna be turning in, from north, they're gonna be turning in. Then we're gonna have cars leaving. They're gonna be going north on Chestnut Ridge, they're gonna be going south on Chestnut Ridge. And there's no light here.
I don't know if they can cross over Chestnut Ridge Road on that.
I don't think you can come out south.
I mean.
Yeah, because I think that's what.
There's a full movement. You
Yeah.
can-
You can.
It's divided, the exit driveway doesn't show up, but the exit driveway is divided.
She knows.
You can see it on the image, the exit driveway is divided. to
Yeah.
Oh, okay, to give you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so I'm just wondering at 9 AM, how many cars, cause it looks like, look, it looks like it's a long driveway, it looks like it's a big turnaround, but is it 30 cars long? Are the McLaren employees coming in the same time? And if we have, because we're now gonna have cars going in and going out at the same time, I find it seems like it's gonna cause some sort of traffic on Chestnut.
So I'm sure the traffic engineer will
Yeah.
probably answer.
We
that
will
question.
address that. Yes.
But you mentioned it earlier with regards to the queue and in comparison to the fast food restaurants. Roughly how many cars of queue would this drop-off area have? Which is, I think, what you wanted him to answer.
Yes.
I think
Took a
before
long
I
time to say
had this data, but we usually use about 25 feet per vehicle, so, think about 10 there, 6, maybe another. I would say.
25.
Above 20, above 20 vehicles if they queued up there, but I just don't see that kind of.
They would all have to come at the exact same time.
Exactly, it just
That's
really
what
doesn't.
drop off is though,
Yeah.
if you're starting a
Yeah.
site, all these parents are gonna be there at the same
I
time.
should say preschools are
Yeah.
a little more flexible with the timing, but parents wanna go,
Yeah.
but. Well, there's no attendance policy where you have to be there. at-
You don't get detention for being late.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Alright.
here, trust me, those parents are waiting.
To get rid of their kids.
Right? No one's coming to moseying in at 10 o'clock to a preschool.
Kids.
All right, do we have any more questions for the witness? Okay, could we open to the public for cross-examination of the witness?
Motion open the.
We're almost in. Got a motion, second?
Second,
All in favor? Okay, first person to come up, we got many hands, give me one, somebody step up and state your name. Just name and town, please.
Ron Copeland, I live in Building 4.
Could you spell that for the note takers?
Copeland's K.
Ron. Okay, have at it, Ron.
Okay. First question I have is the third floor can now handle 65, 70 kids. Okay, now, what happens when McLaren's lease is up? I was told it was like 4 years or something like that left. Is there any plans that you know of to expand it, so now it's gonna be 200 kids? So the application in front of you is for the 8,000 square feet conversion. And whatever, we're gonna hear more from the architect about the first floor fit out. But that's the application that we're asking for. We're not saying that we're gonna come in and this is phase 1 or phase 2. So I assume that it may come back to the planning board if there was a further change of use. But tonight, it's only about what we're proposing here tonight. Second question is, there is an easement for access for emergency vehicles. Yes. If I'm correct, I think I heard you say there's gonna be a fence and there's a gate that's gonna block that easement. Is that correct? There is a gate that is proposed, and I believe, and I'm sorry, I skipped in my testimony, but there is an easement and it's shown on all plans. It's over here on the north side, which allows access to the Four Seasons development from this property. And we are proposing a gate across that with the same Knox box access in order to get emergency vehicles through that. Well, it seems to me we have a community 55 and over. A large part of the community now is 75 and up. Easily, you see at least one ambulance every month, maybe two. There is a fire in the far end. We had a fire, building two, I believe. Excuse me.
We had one.
Mr. Kibble, could you put the aerial image that shows the build? There was one image that you had that shows the 4 buildings on there it is.
So how long, does anybody think about how long it will take for a fire truck, for an ambulance to come into the back entrance, which is as the easement, get out of that truck, get out of the ambulance, get out of the police car, or someone's having a heart attack, or there's a fire, and it could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
I disagree that it would be.
Well, I mean, you could let him answer the question, but he was just gonna comment. He's a fireman.
I was a former fire chief in town, so we don't use.
I think it's a good person to answer it.
The easement is emergency use only for fire trucks, the ambulance will use your main entrance and exit. The easement is emergency use only if they need additional resources to come from another town, because the other parts of the lot are already filled with fire trucks. All the fire trucks, police cars also have Knox boxes. This isn't the only part of town that we do this in, the fire department does this in. To be clear, we have emergency access for the temple, we have emergency access for the parkway, we have Knox boxes on every residential buildings. People have Knox boxes on personal buildings as well, so the fire department did comment about access to the standpipe and the fire hydrant, and they did make an adjustment, we talked about it just a minute ago. And the fire department was comfortable in writing, because we did ask the same question. So with that portion, I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Okay, enough.
No, thank you for the question.
The last question I have, is there going to be a fence around the play area? Yes. There was an actual fence.
Yes, I showed it in one of my renderings.
That's what this is, okay. Here, I'm gonna go back to exhibit A3, and that fence is shown as 4 feet high. And it's shown around the playground here, that gives visual, ability to see the children in the playground, it provides some security, but the security fence is really around the perimeter. Thank you, let's do it.
Gentleman in the blue, all right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike, show these renderings, they're really good. It would really help our residents understand what's going on a lot better. If you can show them.
I mean,
I'll roll one up.
sure.
Gives people a much better understanding of this.
Did you have a question for the witness?
Not me.
Not you.
Not yet.
Not yet? Do you have a question for this witness?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you have a question for this witness? Could you step up to the front, please?
Thank
Could you state your name and
Chairman,
municipality?
Chairman, do you want me to hand these back?
I don't
to
care
the
what you do
public?
with your drawings. You
If
can
you
hand them
want
out to anybody you want.
You guys wanna?
My name is Neil Kaplicer, Kaplicer. And I live at 501 Four Seasons Lane. I was listening very closely to what you were saying about the traffic pattern. Because I was thinking, as people.
Hang on,
exit-
let me just, this is for you to talk to the witness.
Okay.
If you got, and I'm gonna say, if you're gonna ask him about traffic, I know what his answer is gonna be. Wait for the traffic engineer.
Okay, so I am very concerned about people making a left turn out of the properties going south onto Chestnut Ridge Road. No one has brought up the fact that literally across the street, another preschool is opening. I think it's scheduled for September. The Goddard School is opening. And has anyone ever thought about that school opening and this school opening? The hours are going to be very similar because that's also preschool. And how it's going to impact traffic and people exiting and entering all along that same corridor. For me, I think it's something that needs to be looked at very closely. And I'm not sure that anyone has ever thought about that, because I've never heard any discussion.
we have a traffic engineer who is standing back there, who will comment definitely on it, so all the
He
time.
made.
But we
Okay.
just haven't gotten to traffic yet, but it is.
But-
it is-
And that's why I was just directing it to this young lady because the conversation before was about traffic.
Does anyone else have any questions for the witness? Step up, sir. Come on.
My name is Robert Williams, I'm a 405 Four Seasons Lane.
Thank you.
And Williams.
Like Williams, I get it.
My question relates to the choice that you're making for the location of the playground. On the current location that you're proposing, you're taking away 9 parking spots?
No. Yes,
And on the other side, you're taking 7,
no, they remain,
you remain.
yes.
Okay, so it's a combination. My question is, why was the location of the playground selected as you selected it over a different place in the back of the building?
Well, it's the size of it's really the size of the area which drove the north side plus the entrance into the building. So if we use the area, the only other option really would be to the southeast corner of the building. And that would not really, that would be much smaller. There's no other place to put this playground other than adjacent to the building. We
And I
really-
think it seems like the architect will have a better answer on that when he testifies next.
Yes, but we really do not want to be walking these children across the parking lot or through traffic in order to get, excuse me, let me just finish my sentence. To get to a playground which is out remote away from the building. This also provides the access during the Saturday for the children to be supervised, but they would be here. While that is more of a parking lot, not a drop off. So this is really the best area for the playground at this facility.
And the corner of that property is the closest to the Four Seasons residence building.
So we are 115 feet from the edge of the playground to any one of the residential buildings. There are 2 that are almost exactly 115 feet from the corner of that building. Through the vegetation and everything and across that portion of the property.
Any concern about the noise that filters?
We don't, there is a noise ordinance throughout the state of New Jersey that does not allow noise to exceed 65 decibels. There is no way that these children playing, these preschoolers will ever come close to 65 decibels during the day. So it is controlled by state noise ordinance. I understand. This is the kind of noise we'd all like to hear, but this is not going to come close to that standard. It is during the middle of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the witness?
There's a lady over here.
Oop, you stuck?
Judy Koppelman, I'm also 406 Four Seasons Lane.
You guys got the last name?
What's the
last name again? I'm sorry.
Could you spell your last name, please?
KOPPELMAN, just like the community.
Just like the other.
Thanks.
Got it, yeah. Okay, what I'm concerned about
Can you
is
direct your question toward the witness?
what's coming in, going around and coming out. So with the driveway, you're gonna have cars going like this at 9 o'clock and at 3 o'clock.
So Mrs. Kaplan, I think the traffic engineer, we've been through this 4 times already. Traffic engineer is gonna answer that.
I should say that we're not changing any, I think these have to be questions, I'm sorry, but so I'm gonna answer it as a question, but that we are not changing any real circulation drive aisles. There is 2-way traffic on this drive aisle now. All these drive aisles are 2-way traffic. We're actually turning them into 1-way during the morning.
I get that, but here's the problem. If God forbid there's a fire and you've got cars queued up, how's the fire truck gonna use it? How's it gonna swing around? And then it has to first get out and open up that lock box or the school. That's an issue.
Well, okay, so when cars are there, the gate is open.
Not like Four Seasons, no?
Okay, coming down along the Four Seasons, they stop and they can open up the Knox box and get through.
The same way they can, the same way they could.
I should say that if, okay, you have to let me finish because you're asking me questions. So If a fire truck, okay, now granted, let's set the scenario. This is that fire, that, I'm sorry, the board member mentioned, Mr. Shapiro.
Ex-fire chief.
That would only occur if we're calling more, only calling more firehouses or more communities to the fire. And that would occur if there's a lot during the 9 o'clock drop off, that would occur. Just like when you're driving down the street, you slide over to the right, this is a 30-foot drive aisle across here, you have plenty of room to move to the right and allow the truck to continue. If that occurred, that emergency that required more fire departments to arrive and couldn't access the site, and it was during the drop off. So I think what I'm getting at, I don't want to sound at all sarcastic or anything, but the chances of that happen are very, very remote for that to happen. And there is a system that is in place in order to get people around, and it's because the drive aisle is so wide.
Thank you.
The Guy Ulay, N-U-L-E, 112 Four Seasons Lane, I'm in building 1. My question is about the locked access, the locked gate to the access road. We have.
The easement gate?
The easement gate you're referring to this?
Yes, the access road, the
Yeah.
emergency access road.
Absolutely, yes.
I've been living at Four Seasons now almost 14 years. And it has been beaten into us by the fire marshals of both towns. That road has to be kept open, period. We put in a plastic chain, and they made us take that down. So for some reason, the fire department had an epiphany recently that's allowing a locked gate. The second point on the same issue, we had a fire in building 2 fairly recently. And my understanding is that fire trucks came from Park Ridge. And I know the fire departments, the local departments, as well as the police back each other up. Is it envisioned that the key or fob to open that gate is going to be in the possession of Park Ridge, Hillsdale, Washington
It's a
Township?
common key, the Knox box gives a common key for all emergency.
So all the neighborhood fire
Disciplines have the
departments
same
will
key.
have.
Yes, they
So
have.
They come first. they'll be
That's
able
what
to-
it's for, it is exactly for that, and it's a common access key, so there's no question that they would have it. So I should also add, and I think it's been said before, that your fire department has weighed in on this application.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying they must have had an epiphany.
I can't speak for them, but I would say that they had their opportunity and the gate is on there.
Okay,
Okay.
I would
Thank
hope
you.
that the board would take that into consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I need to address that, okay, I've been reviewing site plans for over 40 years. And I will tell you that any emergency access from one property to another, there's always some kind of mechanism to prevent just free flow, and there's always a lock gate with a Knox box. I have not seen one that was
did
not
have.
that situation. This is unusual to have what has existed prior to this.
Are there any other questions for the witness? Okay.
Second.
Very good, guys. All in favor?
All right, thank you. So with that, I'm going to bring up my next witness, which is our project architect. All right, would you like to swear him in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And please state your name for the record.
MAT.
MATURO. First name Michael, right?
And Mike, have you appeared before this board before?
This board now.
All right, so if you could give the board the benefit briefly of your educational and professional background and the status of your license as an architect in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, I'm a licensed architect. I've been licensed for 33 years. I own Miami Architecture PC, which is right down in Chesapeake Ridge. And we've been in the community since 2004.
And you're currently licensed.
I'm currently licensed in about 20 states.
It's in good standing in New Jersey.
I will accept this testimony.
Thank you. So Michael, if you can please explain to the board and the public the proposed fit out and what we're doing here this evening.
Okay, and the drawings that I'm going to show are in the package. There are two drawings here. I'll just start from one, because we did add color and materials board and a couple of renderings to these two sheets here, so I want to give them the same number.
So why don't we, as you get to
As you go through them, we'll just stay on.
Well, I'll just start here at the back, only because the piggybacks on the site engineering, management and walk.
Sure, so just explain what we're looking at.
And that'll be
Our
exhibit what?
A6.
Okay, so right now we're looking at a pergola plan and elevation drawing. That shows the plan and the section, the elevation, also the color rendering.
What's the date on that?
The date on this is 1/26. Where is it? So to piggyback on the site, starting with the entranceway we're proposing, you can see the pergola to the left over here, which has been discussed. This introduces the entrance element, which is very similar in materials to the pergola. Very simply, 4 posts. And it's outdoors, it's not connected to the building, it's not close to the building, it's all made of aluminum. And it has a wood appearance, so that's what we're showing as far as the materials. So the columns and the overhead would be metal, and anything that's in the plus is the ceiling would be the wood color that you see here. So just to orient you, I figured it makes sense to start with this sheet, because this just sets the entry, so when people arrive, they know this is the entry to Valley Divide. Right now, it's pretty nondescript, so it just gives you a landmark, and gives a landmark to see something different. Sheet 201 shows the current condition underneath the building where the entryway would be, the new pergola would be located. And then this just repeats the imagery that was in the civil testimony.
And Michael will mark this as A7.
This would be A7, this is dated 1/26.
And that's continued pergola drawings.
So that starts with the entranceway, so I'll go to the first floor.
And now you're going to be referring to plans that were submitted already.
Correct, everything else has been submitted, so sheet A101 has been submitted. The entryway that I just referenced is outdoors in this area here. So you enter the facility with a new vestibule, double door vestibule, for energy code, you arrive into the lobby area. You come to the building and make a left, you'll be in the community room. You come in and make a right, you'll be in a lobby seating area. Then we have a library area and a reading room. If you continue down the corridor, we have a coat room and a second means of egress from the library. And then you come to the elevators, which are in the central core of the building, and go up through the 3 floors. And then you come around the backside here, there's an entrance to the women's room on one side of the floor, and to the existing men's room. They're both existing, we're actually enlarging them. So we'll exceed building code requirements for plumbing fixtures in the building, giving the uses. And then you continue around here, and this is tied in to the testimony about the location with the playground. The second means of egress, the first is through the lobby here, the second means of egress is through this rear side, just as it is today, it's unchanged. So when there's a fire, the last thing we want to do is group the children with the adults who are exiting. We want to have a controlled egress. So by having the playground on this side of the building, the children can safely be dealt with and evacuated separately from the adult egress. So there'd be no mixing or confusion or crossing of that traffic. So aside from the site restrictions, operationally, I think that's a very important consideration to take with regard to the location of the playground. Also, as Rabbi Good mentioned, for security and ease of getting the children in the building quickly, should something happen outside of the site, you're not traversing a long portion of the site, trying to hurt children who could run in every direction. So we feel that architecturally, this is the ideal area for the playground. If I move up to the third floor. This is where we have the educational use. We have the fire stairs at the center core, the existing elevators. We have a clearance space in this area, which we have the areas of each space. We have noted on our plan. So you can see the clearance space is divided into distinct areas, and the square footage area is over here as well as the area. So it's between 7,000 and 8,000 square feet. The educational facility. So you enter the educational facility. There'll be a receptionist, there'll also be a preschool office here, so they have direct visual access.
If we could just keep the mumbling down so we can hear them.
They'll have visual access for anyone who's entering the facility, they could be advise somebody into the space. Then you come into the space here, you're facing the classroom wing, which is the 6 classrooms, technically 5 with a movable partition. This way, if they need a larger classroom, they can open up the partition. If it becomes 5 classrooms, you close it, it becomes a 6th classroom. Then to the left here, we have the administrative area. So we have all the operations and sort of workstations, and then we have what we're calling the teen lounge. Now, to touch on regulations for daycare centers, everything has been addressed. The playground is part of the regulations, so we need 55 square feet per child in the exterior playground for exterior play space. We have also secondary play space, which becomes the community room on the first floor and or the teen lounge in front of weather when they can't go outside to play. Also, we've gone into the details. By regulations, you have to have X percentage of each wall area into each classroom be visible with glass so that people can observe. So we went down and, we dug down into every regulation that we need. Everything in the pantry is food service cleanable, even though it's just a pantry. So all of our ceiling tiles are food service cleanable. So architecturally, we've met all of the physical requirements for the daycare center for food service. Even though it's not regulated by DOH because it's a pantry, we still have the same standards designed the project. And then we have, obviously, in these areas here, McLaren's existing spaces.
Is there going to be any distinction to keeping the 2 areas separated or any new barriers? Or, I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of security, but the common hallway that is accessible in the building now, which is the common corridor where the elevators are. What is access like now versus how it's going to be when you're done separating it for the children?
So the access, the line of security will be at that double door that has the buzzer. That's the point of security, because we need to we have what we call a scissor stair as our means of egress. So it means that it's housed in one shaft center of the building. So we have to get access to both sides of that scissor stair to have proper building code required exit out of the building. So we can't put any type of
permanent barrier.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to put any type of impediment that would restrict access if there's an emergency in one direction or another. So we're keeping that part of clear and open.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mike, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that summarizes the layout.
Thank you.
Sanjeev, got anything?
It's a question about the scissor stair, so
Yeah.
you got a scissor stair central to the building, into a common corridor. There's no other requirements for the secondary means of egress from the daycare?
We have,
Exception of the scissor stair, sorry,
oh, no, you don't.
yeah, no, with the exception of the scissor stair, there's no other means of egress?
No, we have, our 2 means of egress is if you upon immediate exit through these double doors, you come in one direction to one, and you come in the other direction to the other.
Both center.
Both sets of exit, there's sets of-
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'm just making sure that
That's why we located the door here also, is so that you were at that main point where you can get to both we'll call it wings of the scissor stair.
So you're confident that you're gonna meet all the requirements of the agencies in New Jersey?
Physically, we went through the document, we went through every item on the checklist and made sure, I mean, even with the windows, so just to give you an idea of how. Right now, it's an office building, the glass is not covered, there's a restriction on a height limit that you have to have protection on tempered glass in childcare center. So part of our design is to add railings around the perimeter of the entire daycare center to provide that required barrier,
Protection.
so that they cannot get to the glass. So, we checked all the boxes and hopefully they'll give us approval. Thank you, very thorough, appreciate it.
Anthony, you have anything?
I don't.
No. Okay, open to the public, please.
Second.
All in favor? Is nobody in favor of opening? Oh, anyone have any questions or cross-examine the witness, which is the architect? Well, you had a question for the engineer that I think, was it traffic related? Because he's not the guy for traffic.
No, but it's there.
Directly related to him? All right, I'll leave.
That's why I misheard you, which is very possible.
That's okay.
Did you say there was a team lounge upstairs?
We're pulling it, the lower, the upper H children. There's games, foosball, air hockey,
But, and for what age group are you?
for the highest. Team.
For kids, I thought there were 2 hours. So.
So the idea is that it is a open area during the day when there's children there, there will be. It says it's a indoor playground. And during services, during programs, and we have older kids, they'll have a place to go.
So I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so I'll explain. So effectively, it's used as 2 spaces during the weekday when this is a preschool operation in there. It's just a bonus community room space. You heard Michael mention if there's inclement weather and you can't play outside, it'll be used as an indoor play area. On Saturdays, when school is not in session, it can double as a room for the children who are attending synagogue services, older children specifically, who might want a place to, what I would say, hang out.
Does that answer your question?
It's a disturbing answer, Frank.
Okay, it's an answer though. Any other?
Because my thought was that this was for preschool.
It is for preschool, but it's also a temple.
I understand, but I've never really been to a synagogue where they have a space for only children to play for the service.
Well, at the church, they have a gym.
Well, and that's not super uncommon. Lots of religious organizations that have services and Hebrew school and preschools together.
I'm just saying
They
that
use the rooms to function in all sorts of different ways. Sometimes depending on what you have, like, for weather, for different kids, it's just you move kids around.
So, and
My church sanctuary handles as a basketball.
any other questions for the witness, please? Miss, you just gotta, because they don't remember who you are, just state the name.
Remember who I am?
Right,
Still in Bridge in Montpelier.
thank you.
Okay, 304. Would you clarify for me, because I don't quite understand, you're gonna have a 4-foot fence around the playground? Correct?
Correct.
Okay, then you said there was gonna be a 6-foot high aluminum fence.
I didn't say that.
That was the engineer earlier that you spoke to?
Was that gonna be around the entire perimeter of your property?
He had it on the drawing. It doesn't go around the entire way. It goes to about the front of the building. It's gonna be an aluminum fence along your side,
Just like the one that you have.
just taller. Based on the testimony of the engineer. Not for privacy. No,
It's not gonna be a chain link then.
no, aluminum, just same as yours, just taller.
So I wanna know what's going up by.
An aluminum fence, same as yours, but taller.
Like slats, it's not a solid fence. It's not solid.
It's not a solid.
It's not a solid fence.
No,
I think
not chain
that's what
link.
you're at.
Aluminum.
Not chain link and it's not solid.
Aluminum post, man,
Okay.
right? I don't have a picture of it, but that's what he described. Do we have any other? Kay, do you have any other questions for the architects?
So it's gonna be a secret fence then, it's not for privacy.
It's for security.
But the gate, is the gate going to be a black, I mean, ours is black along Chestnut Ridge. Is that gonna be black, open up gate?
I don't know
or is
the-
it a solid gate?
The engineer didn't testify to the color of it, but it will be the same gate, the same style fencing. Do you have any questions? We're good? All right. Ma'am, can we go ladies first and then I'll get you? Thank you.
Visual space, so I am,
Before we start,
Connie Grassi,
perfect.
I'm
Any,
building 3,
are you good with names there? Okay.
so. I'm right on the side. Toward the parking lot, building 1, 2,
And 3,
and 3, and 4. We're right on the side there.
on the south side of the complex, yeah.
Now. I visualize in here, right?
North side of the
Where
site,
we
south side of
started.
their complex.
This
Yes,
is the parking, right? So we are right here, straight down. Those 4 buildings are right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the question that I have for you, I understand the kind of fence you want to put there, similar to the one that we have right now. Is that correct, 6 feet?
I'm not.
Or am I asking that?
well, that would have been a perfect question. Hang on, that would have been a perfect question for the engineer, who I think may be able to chime in if you have, are you questioning the style of fence?
No.
What is your question?
No, the fence is gonna start from the beginning of the entrance of the parking lot and all the way.
No,
down.
it's gonna start about 50 feet past the sprinkler, the fire hydrant and Siamese connection for the building. It's gonna be probably about halfway down the building. That's where the gate on the north side of this property is gonna be located. Is that the gate that you're talking about?
No, well,
Which
it's gonna
gate?
be further down from the gate, all the way down. Is that what
Which
it's called?
gate?
The gate, the fire gate,
For for accessing the easement?
right, so.
It's
you're
gonna be
gonna-
right where, I think there's a specific location for that easement where the gate will
Right.
go.
So the gate is there, the fire gate, right?
Uh-huh,
Before that, there's gonna be
a
a
fence,
6-foot fence.
the entire way up until
All the
about
way
halfway to the, halfway up the
Whatever
building.
the other side of the fire.
All the way around the property.
Way down.
The entire
That's
backyard,
6
they're gonna treat this as a secure area. The entire rear of the property will be gated.
That's about 6 feet, you said, right?
It will be 6
It's
feet.
more like one of those metal decorative,
It will be an aluminum,
yeah. Also.
Picket fence from
for
what I'm told.
privacy and noise control. Any consideration of putting some already full-grown trees.
well, I think they're adding, I don't remember, if it was 14 or 24, but they're adding some trees to the property.
Trees to be right against our fence for us to have privacy and noise control. That would be like something ideal to have there for us, at least to have some privacy and some noise control. But
Testify to the site, but I can testify to acoustics and open, anything that is open, if it's not a solid barrier. Right, and it's not secured into the ground and solid barrier, no holes, will not stop the sound, because the sound waves travel upwards.
But that's at least privacy, I mean, you know, if you put this tall, as I'm giving you like a pine trees, right? Evergreens, are they?
But man,
Wait,
there's a
it's-
200,000, I mean, this, 200 car parking lot for an office building right next, so I'm not sure what privacy
No,
they're
no.
looking for now that you didn't.
So it's gonna
before.
be invading our privacy, because I'm on the 3rd floor on building 3.
Right, but this
This-
is a 3-story office building that has been here since 1980.
Okay, but I could see that back every day from my bedroom window, okay?
Uh-huh,
I could see it from here, right? This is where it is. This is where it ends. Right here.
right.
Now you're taking over. Another, how many feet is the pergola, the playground going further
I
this
think
way?
he testified it's about 30 feet wide.
So we're talking about, this is like really an extended to where it is right now. Right now, truthfully, I don't see too much going on. But once that playground goes on and the pergola and everything, it's already, we're talking about from here all the way down here. I ain't gonna see all that, you know, I don't see too much.
So Chairman, can I address this?
Absolutely.
Sure. So I wanna clear the deck with a couple of things, right? And I know this is questions for the architect, but I'm happy to answer as the attorney. So again, what we're proposing is permitted on the property, right? We're allowed to have the preschool, we're allowed to have the student. However, one of the things that I just spoke to my engineer about, who's better to speak to about landscaping than the architect, I checked with him and I checked with the board planner, and we have no exception, we take no exception to working with the board's professional planner to see if there's any additional landscaping that he feels might be appropriate along the shared property line that could survive and thrive. And it's,
Understand what I'm trying to say.
I understand.
For privacy, at least,
So-
to me, not
yeah.
to.
Yeah, I understand, and we're happy to work with him towards a reasonable solution to be able to accommodate some additional, like you heard, probably not acoustic, but visual buffering. With some additional foliage that we might be able to plant there that would survive. So
It's not gonna,
we're
you
happy
know,
to do that.
stop me seeing the whole thing, but at least I'll be able to have some privacy. You know, to have these tall trees, at least, you know, against the fence. To
Yeah.
be able to kind of.
So again, it has to be something that makes sense, right? If it's gonna die because it doesn't get the right amount of light or so we'll work with Mr. Trace. Yeah,
Some trees, right?
Yep.
On the side there, there's beautiful pine.
maybe it
trees.
needs a couple of trees filling in the gaps. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's my concern, like I said, it's the privacy and the noise. We just moved in 2 years ago, so. And I lived in Montville for
So you've been
35
lucky
years.
because
We
the,
had a home in Montville for 35 years. We decided to go to the Philly plus communities.
I think you'll be, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Just looking to get away from all the kids.
All right, we had a gentleman that had a question. Thank you very much.
My name is
Patience.
Jeff Sanders. Building 7.
You said Jeff Sanders, right? We just have some quiet in the audience, thank
I
you.
don't know who to address this to, so I'll address it to you, you can direct me,
Okay,
if you don't mind. Until about a half hour ago, this was a discussion about, primarily the outside, taking the school for young children. At the school, if you will, childcare. All of a sudden, we're talking about teenagers now, a teenage lounge. There could be different repercussions from having kids there, teenagers there, than having young kids. Teenagers may drive in by themselves, they have the ability possibly to come in at any time. They can go in the playground and do things that little kids can do. Or as what you had mentioned in using the facility to play games during services. I've never been in a synagogue. I've been in many synagogues. I've never been in a synagogue. And this is no disparagement on you, Rabbi, but a rabbi would kill me if I was playing knock hockey and there were services going on. Yeah.
That's why no kids go to synagogue.
Shade.
Rabbis are kids, the rabbis were killing them.
And Marcy.
all right, so hang on. So I think that question would be less geared towards the architect and more geared towards the rabbi with regards to how the teen room may be used. Ms. Cole, would you be opposed to having the rabbi answer that question? I think
Not-
that may
Not
come
opposed
up.
at all.
Wouldn't be
Okay, not opposed at all.
All right, Rabbi Dov, would you be able to answer this gentleman's question with regards to the teen room?
The hope is, and so during the day, to have a place, all kids are in school, you know, to use that space for when we need inclement weather, like a playground, with the peaceful kids. And then we have any ancillary programs of like a flexible space that we can gather, for other kids, teens, and maybe even if used as a classroom, but we definitely have, you know, kids coming, and our hope is, and I don't mean this, but not to create a space where the next generation feel comfortable coming. That's
I think one of his questions, Rabbi, was, is it gonna be open all the time for
No.
teenagers to come and go and?
And this is, I'm sorry, I jumped on.
That's okay, I
The
want,
answer to that question is that every event is monitored, it's not a free for all, you can't get into the building without, you know. You can't get onto the property, can't just drive in, it can't be a hangout where you'll, go to the local 7-Eleven and hang out around the corner. This will be when programs are there, when it will be monitored, it will be with counselors, rabbis, self. And, you know, we do hope to have, that's why we need this flex space to have, you know, kids of different ages to be able to use that space. It's not a, and I understand and I respect the concern, you know, don't want kids coming onto your property and doing things, but I think these, you know, it's a lesson, it's very synagogue, so we will have, make sure that we try to get the kids to come. You know,
So Rabbi, maybe perhaps rather than, and I know we called it on the plan a teen lounge, it's more of a flex space. You might have, if you have, you know, 5 or 10, you know, older children there for Saturday services, you might have like a junior congregation, you might have
That's
what-
definitely the description and additional flex space.
So in other words, if I can ask you one more question, and I think we'll go to this, during school hours, so during the week, it might be used by the school if there's inclement weather, if there's any reason to need indoor play space. During the non-school hours, it would only be used for synagogue programming, and that would be synagogue staff there with parents there, and it might be used. for
Religious use, I would say.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We got one in the right-hand corner over here.
Might have been covered initially, I'm not sure. Two questions.
Excuse me, sir, could you just state your name on the record?
Bill Dooley, D-O-L-E-Y. 508, Portsmouth Lane.
Thank you.
Two questions, one regarding noise as it relates to the pergola and that's the barbecue area. And the other one is relates to lighting. Both of which, if not handled properly, would have detrimental effect on our senior tranquil, I mean, as simple as that. Number one. How do we know that with this new facility, there won't be parties? Parties with maybe live music, parties with boom boxes, you know. I know there's certain decibel levels you can't exceed apparently, I don't know the rules, but how do we know that there won't be parties? And the people living in buildings 1 through 4 at least will be detrimentally impacted by that. That's one thing. The other one is lighting. If you're going to have events at night in the back, I'm assuming there will be new lighting. If those people are looking out the back and your back parking lot is lit up like it never was before, that'll have a detrimental effect. So those are the two things that I'm concerned about.
So maybe because these are questions for the architect, right? Maybe this is that period. So Michael, can you address anything related to, are we proposing any additional lighting in this rear space
No,
area?
there's no new lighting. No new lighting in the back. The only light that there would be that entry point that I mentioned in front. They'll just have 1-inch strip lights in there, just so it's not a dark space that you're entering underneath. That's no big lights that would affect, but everything else is existing to remain.
And any of the interior changes that you're doing, or any of the interior changes that you're doing, would that create any type of catering hall scenario? That you know, that type of use or party use as Ms. Dooley has stated?
Well, I think as Rabbi mentioned, there would be meal service that they have in the community rooms.
Okay.
So for that, that's it. It's the operation.
Anything ancillary to a synagogue, yes, there would be, you know, there would be times that you would have, I mean, I don't anticipate boom boxes and big outdoor parties, but you know, on a Hanukkah festival, you'd be inside, you may have music, I mean, it's deep in the winter, so it's not outside.
Again, that's not, this application is just for this build, so that they're already there as a synagogue, so they do that now.
One of the things that, you know, I don't know if this is the time, but I just to answer the part of the question, I really, I believe I understand the concern of my neighbors, and I want to be a neighbor, a good neighbor.
And we do too.
Right, and I know that, we've talked, you know, and And, you know, my hope is to be able to facilitate what we're doing and also be, you know, my ears to our neighbors and make sure that we're not, you know, impinging and hurting your lifestyle. But we've been there for 2 years, almost 2 years. Our tenant has backyard parties with loud music and this, we've never gotten a complaint of that. Your board. You've never seen that, that's the point. You've never seen twice a year, and we've had, so you will have 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. Some outdoor activity, that you're invited, then, right, and it's just that, but look.
And Rabbi, that's no different than what's going on now.
That's what we've done.
Regardless of this facility is not adding more of those or changing that environment at all.
When you mentioned that you were going to have the pergola and that there might be some sort of service outside, but you indicated it wouldn't be like a reception or a party afterwards. So, you know, I think is that the concern, that the pergola would become like an outdoor space, that there'll be DJs and live music every Saturday for bar mitzvahs?
Well, maybe not every Saturday, but
frequently.
But when you have a really nice facility, like I think this is going to be.
Right.
Would there ever be a situation where you would want to generate some revenue and lease it out to a third party?
Yeah.
We would not do that.
There's not.
You would not do that.
I mean, we wouldn't mind if we did that, because then we could tax them.
And what?
Change your laws to do that.
And one of the things I'll add as well, and I'm speaking to the board, but I'm speaking really more to everybody in the public, right? And I've worked on a lot of applications involving schools and involving houses of worship. And most of them, especially an Orthodox run synagogue, is going to be located in an area that's near residential uses. And one of the things that we typically do, and I typically offer, and full disclosure, I haven't even checked this with Rabbi Drizin, so I hope he doesn't shoot me. But, you know, we typically offer a point person, right, to all of the residential neighbors and say, here's the individual, here's the phone number, email address that you can reach out to with any question, because we can provide the testimony, as you've heard Rabbi Drizin provide. There might be a situation where, for example, the McLaren office has a party and maybe they exceed the noise ordinance and they're not supposed to. So, you know, you could call zoning enforcement or property maintenance, and I'm sure they would come out, but that's not the point. I think what's more important is having an email or a phone number for a contact for the building, which I suspect would be Rabbi Drizin or.
I opened that.
And you could say, I had an issue there, this occurred, you know, you said at the planning board meeting that there weren't going to be this occurred. How do we deal with it? And I think that it's a very fair way to make good neighbors, both for the rabbi and his congregation in the preschool, as well as all of you residents immediately next door. So I'm happy to put that on the record, and, you know, we can decide after the fact who that contact point will be and make sure that he reaches out or she reaches out to, you know, I guess your association, and make sure that you have that information.
Right. Mr. Dooley, does that answer your questions?
It does.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the architect? Okay,
Motion to close to the public.
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so the moment you've all been waiting for. And I see him timidly walking in, but with that, I'll call up our traffic engineer, John Korak.
This is your last witness, Mr.
I have a planner to justify the variance as well.
Before, if you don't mind, can we just take 5 before?
Sure. no
We
problem.
get into this testimony?
No
Someone
problem.
needs to use the restroom. I'm sure some in the audience may need maintenance as well. I don't know if you shut that off during break, but guess they shut this off. Or- Don't touch it. Keep- Now, let's try to get this over. Thank you. Please be quiet in the back so we can hear. Mr. Klein, your witness?
Wine.
Wine, sorry.
Oh, good. I'll have some later, so.
Bring the wine.
Yeah, so with that, I'll call up our traffic engineer, John Korak of Stonefield Engineering.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
It's John Korak, last name spelled Corak.
Thank you.
And John, if you can please give the board the benefit of your educational professional background and the status of your license and expertise as a traffic engineer.
Of course. So I'm a senior project manager with Stonefield Engineering and Design, office located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the College of New Jersey. I'm an expert in the field of traffic and transportation engineering. I've prepared over 250 traffic studies for land development applications. I've testified before over 100 boards in the state. I also serve as board expert for a handful of municipalities, including Teaneck and Leonia in Bergen County.
I think he's qualified.
I think so too.
We'll qualify him as an expert in traffic engineering, correct?
Yes.
So John, obviously, I'd like you to go through the site circulation, the trip generation and the parking. You've also heard some questions from board members, from members of the public. So feel free to intertwine responses into your testimony.
I will do my best, but in case I missed any from the back, feel free to ask again. So I'll start by referencing Exhibit A2, which is that aerial exhibit. The site 530 Chestnut Ridge Road, located on the east side of Chestnut Ridge Road. The roadway itself, of course, is Bergen County controlled roadway, 2 lanes of travel in each direction, north and south. And through this frontage, there is a dedicated left turn lane that serves access into the site along the road. So you're not making left turns from the through travel lane. And then as you're exiting, there are existing split left turn and right turn lanes coming out of that driveway. So we want to provide that initial framework in terms of the driveway access and what the site presently provides, because that access is not changing under this proposed plan. So what is changing from a site plan perspective, very little. From an operations perspective, of course, we're adding the childcare facility. As was already testified, from a traffic perspective, entering that single driveway on Chestnut Ridge Road, working around the north side of the building, and then down to the entrance for the child care center on the east side of the building, the lower end Garden State Parkway side of the building. What we would expect or forecast for traffic generated by this type of development, or by the child care center, based on operations, based on the trip generation manual published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, about 45 or so vehicles coming to the site and leaving the site at that peak drop-off time at 9 a.m. and again during that mid-afternoon pickup time. So it's about 45 vehicles that need to get on and off the site within a relatively narrow window. So the question becomes, how do they do that? How do they manage that safely and efficiently? How does the queuing look? All those pieces of consideration from a broad lens view makes it seem like that perhaps traffic could be a substantial issue. Through my expertise as a traffic engineer, and maybe most importantly as a reviewing engineer in Teaneck, we've looked at a lot of these childcare applications, including hands-on investigations of existing childcare facilities that have the same operation. So from an operations perspective, during drop-off, which has the most traffic similarity as the office in terms of just peak generation, but it's a little bit easier to navigate and to manage because you're not trying to tie a kid to a specific car. The kid's already in the car and they come into the building. So you do have staff outside that are assisting the children into the building. It's a very quick procedure in terms of the car arrives, the parent gets the child or children out of the car, and then the teachers, the staff, they walk the children into the building. So that process on a per vehicle basis could be as fast as 30 seconds, 60 seconds for in and out. Whereas a typical park your car, walk your child in daycare for a drop off is usually in the range of 5 to 6 minutes. So this is exceptionally faster than, say, a traditional park and walk in style operation. On the afternoon pickup time, right? This is where it gets a little more complicated, where you need to have a little more of a fine-tuned operation. And that's exactly what the rabbi is proposing. With boots on the ground operation, walkie-talkies, you have the same personnel who actually end up recognizing the vehicles that the parents are coming in. They know when there's not the parents, say the grandparents are coming. And what ultimately happens is they see a car that's coming in for their pickup and drop off, for their pickup, and they radio that child down before that car is even parked, right? It's that seamless and that smooth, and all the the observations I've made on site at these types of facilities. On average, that pickup takes about 2 minutes, 30 seconds per vehicle. And that includes 1 kid, 2 kids, occasionally 3 kids, but on average, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. And those are occurring simultaneously with one another, right? It's not that one car takes 2 minutes, 30 seconds, second car is another 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and you've only got 2 cars done in 5 minutes. No, you're able to, bring out, and because parents are putting their children into the vehicle, you're able to move several vehicles at a time through this procedure. So I was going back through some notes for one of the sites that I studied recently. This is in Teaneck. It's the Gan Yavna at 725 Queen Anne Road. They have set dismissal times with their pickup periods, right? And so I was out there studying their busiest dismissal time, which occurs at 4 p.m. And within an 8-minute window, so very consolidated window, they had 32 vehicles arrive and depart from their site with no issue. That is where we saw the 2 minute, 30 second transaction time, if you will, but pickup time on average. Averaged 1.5 children per vehicle, 1.46 if you want to round decimal places. But overall, a very fast, seamless operation. And because of that, the queuing on the site was minimal. Typical queues were 1 to 2 vehicles. They were active in making sure that vehicles pulled up, so that way you're not trying to load a child up by the playground, but you pull the vehicles through. You actually have them wait to get their kids in, bring them down, closer to the front of the line, and then have them load their children, so that way you can achieve the best stack possible. Also on this site, because we're working with a lot of two-way drive aisles that are relatively untraveled or lightly traveled through these pickup periods, you do have the ability to skirt out a line, bypass the line if you were ready to go, and that way the queue can continue to move up. It all operates very fluidly, very efficiently, and would not forecast an adverse on-site queuing impact, anything that's going to really substantially impact that cross-access easement with fire. Definitely nothing that's ever going to get back to Chestnut Ridge Road in terms of queuing. And then as you're departing the site at that driveway, that pickup time period, because traffic volumes are a little bit lower on Chestnut Ridge Road. It is, is a major arterial roadway for Bergen County, but it does have the lane capacity and so forth to accommodate that. Last piece, just to touch briefly on the parking, because this is a compliant site in terms of parking. 171 spaces required, 204 provided. I did hear the site civil testimony about increasing the number of ADA accessible spaces to 7. We included that in our report as well. And there's a few areas on site that are actually already hatched that would probably make appropriate location for different ADA parking spaces, or it could be reworked slightly on site, basically new striking, if you will. With that, that includes my direct, but you might have a few rebuttal questions for me.
Sure, I definitely not rebuttal.
Not rebuttal.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna dispute. No. So look, I think the testimony speaks for itself, right? You're not just hired by the applicant to provide traffic testimony. You've looked at industry standards, but you've actually reviewed on the other side, on the municipal side, how this actually operates. I think providing real-time data, you know, even down to the decimal place, I think is indisputable, right? It's facts on the ground, it's how it operates in a Bergen County town, a similar type use. But I'm gonna offer you the age-old adage, the traffic engineer would love to hear, which is you don't plan a shopping center for Black Friday, right? Which for anybody that understands what I mean by that is there is one day a year where you might have a giant, you know, at the Garden State Mall, you might not have enough parking, or you might have queuing because you've got major sales of things that occur. If in a situation like this, where you have a site that is overparked quite significantly by over 30 spaces, you have uses that are, yeah, I guess the office use and the childcare use run in tandem, but the synagogue use is not in operation when those two are operating, and vice versa. When the synagogue is in use on Saturdays, those other two uses are not operating. If, however, in an extremely rare situation where you might end up with everyone decides to drive and pick up a kid, you end up with 65 vehicles coming in one time at exactly 3 p.m. or exactly 9 a.m. Is there a mechanism with this site, given the parking volume, given, I think you mentioned a bypass ability, would this site still be able to accommodate that type of traffic?
Absolutely. And so when you look at, say, that worst case 100th percentile scenario, right? The ability to use parking spaces, to park vehicles if necessary, the wide drive aisles that facilitate 2 lanes of traffic, as well as the depth of the site, right? This isn't a site where we're working with 50 feet of depth and we're trying to really squeeze in an access aisle for pickup drop off. Now, this is an existing site, existing drive aisles, parking areas, building that is set back, and pickup drop off area that's set back even further than that. So, you know, with all those considerations that you're referencing in terms of peak travel, if there is that situation, it's still absolutely able to be accommodated on the site.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further for Mr. Korak.
Board members? Yeah, could you just address, I guess, the comments that we've been hearing about traffic, Chestnut Ridge Road, while people are pulling in, while the daycare next door also has the new Goddard School across the street. You know, if it's peak time for everybody, what does the traffic look like on Chestnut Ridge Road, if you could talk about that?
Yeah. So the new Goddard School coming in at Chestnut Ridge Road, it's about 500, 600 feet north of this site. It's not as if there is an aligned driveway directly across from the site. It's going to add some residual amount of traffic, but having worked on Goddard School applications myself, that traffic for that type of use is not one that everyone arrives at 9 o'clock.
They're staggered from their application.
Right, so they're staggered, parents drop off their children as it works for their schedule, not as it works for the school schedule. So, right, that staggered, the staggered pickup drop off helps distribute it away from, say, our fixed localized peak. A 9 o'clock start works really well in terms of compatibility with an office building use, because by and large, people that are coming to office buildings, they are getting there before 9. It's, a lot of places start at 8. My work, I'm in before 9 each and every day, even with dropping off a 2.5-year-old. But it's,
Oh, so you're in that daycare line.
My daycare is a park and walk in, and it takes a lot longer than this one. So,
Well, I know from Lollipop, which has got very minimal drive aisle queuing, they have this process down to a science.
Yes.
And they are a time drop off. So I don't think this is a fixed time, like Rabbi had said. It's kind of more of a convenience for the parents on the drop off. So I'm not sure. Again, I asked, I think, the engineer to do a little bit of math, but what would be the queue on the worst case scenario, roughly? Have you done the calculation on number of vehicles it would take to queue up, let's say, past the building?
Yeah, so from the southeast corner up to the northeast corner, and then around to that first drive aisle in the northwest corner, that's a distance of about 400 feet. So that's going to run you anywhere from 16 to 20 vehicles in a single file line.
That's roughly like the elementary school in town.
Yeah, but that's not a good example because
Well,
the parking.
I know that, but that's also it's a couple hundred kids.
It doesn't have the volume.
That's what I'm saying, it's a couple hundred kids, right?
They're not happy with that.
Right.
That's often because.
The capacity might match, but the actual demand in queue that we would see would be much less.
Correct.
It's not the same number of children, it's much less.
Much less. Yeah.
And I haven't been out at the school during that, drop off period or pickup period, but we do have our boots on the ground operation, walkie talkies, as you said, it gets down to a science.
Yeah.
Like they become that good now.
And that's, your testimony is also with, what's it called, kinder care, or what's the other one down the road? No, not Goddard, the.
On the same side
Oh,
of
the.
it's kinder care.
Kinder care, so that's all daycares being the same, you don't see a significant residual on Chestnut Ridge Road.
No, I don't, no.
If there was, let's say, there starts to be this backup on Chestnut Ridge Road, is there any consideration of maybe flexibility with time if his school starts at 9, but maybe you allow drop off starting at like 8:45 to 9:10, just to keep things, moving a little bit?
I don't know if that's traffic engineer, that's more.
Yeah, so I'll say, and I think it's a very good question. What often happens operationally from, again, all these types of uses, if they notice that their staff has no interest in spending the first hour of the day controlling traffic outside, right? And that's what would happen in that worst case scenario. So often what happens is there's an internal sit down where we're like, all right, let's change it so that drop off is now going to be 8:45 to 9 o'clock. So we're gonna give a 15-minute window or 8:50 to 9:10 and give a window. And that's a very operational thing that, as I think you heard testimony from John, but also the chairman, they've got it down to a science. This is, they work it because your staff are gonna have no interest in sitting out there for an hour trying to play, traffic control.
I think if there is backup on there, I think your wonderful police department will have a discussion with the rabbi. I think you're good. I think.
Tom, do you have any other questions?
No,
Jerry got it? Yep, okay. Public,
Motion to open the public for questions of the witness.
Second.
all in favor? Sir?
Thanks. Bill Patterson, Woodcliff Lake. And I'd like to ask the engineer a few questions. 100% great. It's a very impressive presentation. I'm here only after having read his report, so I need to assimilate what I read with what was said tonight. So if you may, did you put A2 up? Just to clarify, the engineering entrance is here, and I assume this is the engineering parking.
Yeah, so the engineering entrance on the west side of the building, it comes in at the second level because the slopes back as you go deeper in the site. The front of the building, yes, would be pretty much all engineering parking, for McLaren, but I do know that by the ratios, if you will, from a parking requirement, it would necessitate some use in the back in terms of complying with the little parking requirement.
But you'd agree with the preponderance of the parking for engineering.
Yes, that's the first.
The point is that we at Four Seasons, and my unit is right there, have never been affected by the existing use of the building because the parking's here. Cars come in and they park here. So all these units have not been affected. What's being affected now is all of a sudden an explosion of activity in the back. And the queuing that may occur to get to the back. And that's what I'm concerned about. That's what I'd like to talk about. So I'm concerned about the queuing.
Okay.
Again, I'm burdened only by the report you wrote.
Sure.
And Mr. Prost as well. 60 students, 16 staff. That's 76, potentially 76 cars coming. And simple math, they're not all going to come in at the same time, but they're probably all going to come in within, say, 20 or 25 minutes. So my simple math is 76 vehicles new coming in this way over 25 minutes is 3 cars a minute, one every 20 seconds. Now, if it takes longer than 20 seconds to drop, then you're gonna have queuing. Because cars are coming in every 20 seconds, and unless you drop them in 20 seconds, they're gonna queue. It's gonna queue.
All right,
That's
so,
simple math.
so a couple things with this, right? Because it is simple math, but the math does get more complex. All right, so.
It's okay, I
Yeah.
studied queuing theories.
Perfect, so your first number up is 76, right? So that is staff, right? That is then based on 60 students. We've heard testimony 65 to 70, and we've heard testimony today 12 to 15. What you cited was what's in my report, so you're
I
absolutely.
can only be guided by your
Yes.
report.
So that's beside the point. First, so the staff members, right, they're not part of the queue
And why is that?
because they work in the building, they park and then
Where do they park?
they park within the parking spaces in the rear of the
Where?
site.
Back here.
Yeah.
Well, then they have to come across the northern side of the building. Park.
Right, but staff arrives before the children, so there is no queue going. Second, 60 vehicles associated with 60 children just doesn't bear out in the real world, right? Your typical vehicle occupancy, as we've observed, is about 1.5 children per vehicle.
For what type of school?
For a, basically a daycare preschool.
Rabbi, with whom we've met a couple times, said the expected age range of the daycare.
Yeah.
Is about 2.5 years old to 4.5.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd say that's consistent with the 1.5, so, we're bringing that number down to 40. In my testimony, I cited the 45, which coincides with the trip generation table that's in the report. And so from there, we're talking about getting a car through every 20 seconds. What it ultimately is, it's, if you get one car through, it doesn't mean that the next car is also not operating in that same window, right? So getting a car through at a specific interval is actually something that can be accomplished. And we've seen it firsthand, observed it firsthand at these other sites. And so the queuing does not back up because you're able to process multiple cars simultaneously.
Now going out.
Mhm.
Where everyone's pretty much leaving at the same time, school ends at 3 o'clock, so we did the total 9:03.
Over a multiple minute window, yes.
So same thing happens in reverse. Well, actually. People get dropped, it's just gonna happen twice every day. You're gonna have potential queuing in, potential queuing out at 9, potential queuing in, potential queuing out at 3. This map depicts a left turn and a right hand turn leaving.
Correct.
I don't think that that's one thing. That was there yesterday. And even if it is, what happens if a person who wants to turn south on Chestnut Ridge Road doesn't see these arrows and winds up here? And then every car, most of the cars, I assume, are gonna want to turn left. Rabbi gave us quite a bit of information about his community, his congregation. And most of the congregation lives to the south, so most of the people leaving are gonna go.
Yeah, so I think first of all, this is a site plan application. Certainly no issue with refreshing the lines on the driveway here. It does have the adequate width to support it. And look, it's a permitted left turn exit movement. The county has provided its exemption. If they don't like a development's traffic, even if it's an existing driveway, they will provide comment. There will become a planning board application.
Who's that?
Bergen County.
Oh.
They control Chestnut Ridge Road. They have jurisdiction, right? So the ability of getting these vehicles, make the left turn, continue south on Chestnut Ridge Road. It's factored into this application already, and it's something that can be readily accomplished, especially considering that they're not competing with any of the other uses on site for that traffic volume, right? It's not like the office lets out while the childcare lets out. Or in the morning, it's largely people coming in to the office, so your departing parents who have just dropped off, they're not competing with anyone but themselves, really.
Let me just conclude here, and then if I may ask one or two questions about the Chestnut Ridge. You're an expert, I trust you implicitly, I'm sure you call it like I see it. I'm still concerned about queuing.
Okay.
Both at 9 in the morning and 3 at night, and with queuing comes cars idling, which is noise, and more and worse, environmental. I think there's a potential for a very significant detrimental or impact on, at a minimum, all the people who live here. There's over 50 people who live here. So you're affecting, there's 48 units, do 1.5. That's 72 people that live right here. I am very concerned about queuing. And I don't know how else to say it, but I guess we'll just wait and see if this board decides to approve the bulk variance, which I have concerns about. And then there turns out to be queuing. Do we have, and I guess I really shouldn't direct it to you. I don't know who to direct it to. What's our recourse?
Yeah, so a couple things, and you've said a lot, and I think they're all very astute questions, and you clearly study the materials, which is good. The expert testimony is that real life scenarios, this just doesn't, that the concern you have does not bear out, right? And that's been his testimony, and that's the testimony. However, one of the things we're seeking here tonight for site plan approval, we've put the operations on record. We've said maximum 65 to 70 students, approximately 15 staff to support that. If we decided, I think the bigger concern, and maybe you didn't ask this question, but I'm going to answer it anyways. What if this explodes and it's a great daycare and you end up with them saying, hey, we can turn that flex space into 2 additional classrooms and now we can accommodate 30 additional kids and all that. We'd have to come back to this board and provide similar testimony to increase beyond our operations that we propose. So I think you can rely on Mr. Korak's testimony with respect to the real life, how it actually bears out when you have this number of students, this number of expected vehicles, this length of travelway, this amount of bypass lane, this amount of excess parking, and then you can rely on the board's protective measures, which should they vote to approve it here tonight, would be to adopt and incorporate in their resolution operational limitations that says, as a condition, if you are going to increase beyond the testimony here tonight, you have to return. And so, you know, as you heard the rabbi say, it's not going to be day one. It's going to be, you know, year one, you might end up with 15 or 20 students in a couple of classes. Year two, you might increase as well, but you're not going to get beyond that 65 to 70 without returning to this board, at which point all of these things will be considered. And if there is a concern that, hey, we've got a queuing of 15 vehicles and we're concerned that, you know, going from 15 to 20 might put them into Chestnut Ridge, the board's going to assess that with that application.
Mr. Couric, I just want to follow up on some of the questions. If this office building, which probably hasn't operated at capacity for some time now, if it were full as an office building, would the traffic being generated be more or less on what the applicant is proposing?
More or less than the childcare center?
In other words, I don't know if you're prepared to answer what the traffic counts would be if it was a fully staffed office building.
Right.
Right, with parking for 200 and something cars. I don't know what the queuing would be, and I don't know what the traffic counts would be, but how does that compare into what the applicant is proposing?
Yeah, so with the office use, right, it peaks obviously in the morning with mostly arrivals, and it peaks again in the evening, well after the daycare is dismissed, with mostly dismissals. Those arrivals, those dismissals would generate more traffic or more volume than the number of cars coming in for the childcare. When we look at it from a matter of what we call trips, which is one trip in, one trip out.
Yeah, normally you guys are giving us letters.
Yeah.
We're not hearing any letters for you guys tonight.
The letter analysis is not part of, but what I can tell you is that the in and out total in that period of the childcare center, it's higher than the in and out total of the office, but the office single direction travel is higher than the childcare single direction travel. Because you park and stay is all.
Oh, okay, I got you.
May I just respond to council's point? In your consultant's study, he was able to opine that because the vehicle count was just under 100, that was not a substantial change in traffic on Chestnut Ridge Road Boulevard. But that's predicated on 60 students and 16 staff. So in fact, you're capped. If you increase the number of students beyond 60 or the staff beyond 16, your consultant's conclusion on just under 100 incremental vehicles is invalidated. So
right, totally.
Right.
But they would have to come back to this board if they grew.
They would have to,
Correct.
because they're right. It's very convenient that
Correct.
those two.
No.
those two lines.
I know where you're going with this. If we if we didn't put a cap on this, if we said tonight, oh, down the road, there might be 150 students here. They might have to do an updated traffic study. It might not require them to come back to this board. What I'm saying does require us to come back to this board is the fact that our operational testimony is capped at a certain number of kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Just one more question on the boulevard.
Sure.
I read your testimony about the impact on the boulevard, I call it Chestnut Ridge Road Boulevard corridor. You use as a reference point the Glen light, the light at Glen. And you use a reference number 1250, that's like some kind of traffic count, 1250, at the Glen light. But that's a look back number. That's a look back number. I think it's safe to say that the traffic at the Glen light is going to get substantially larger, substantially soon because of the development on the north end of the BMW property. That,
I'm trying to find the reference.
That's
I'm not
If we,
sure.
if we could just pause for 1 second, board members, we could just get a motion to
Motion to
extend.
extend to 10:30.
so,
I need a second, all in favor?
yes, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of two.
No, I got one no. Give me Tom as a no.
Sorry, I'm gonna be really quick.
Right.
Look, I looked at.
The point is, your analysis of the boulevard is a look back, and it's static, it's look back, it's based on a historical count. And I think most of us who live here know that that's completely meaningless, because the north end of BMW is gonna be like Wegmans 2 soon. Woodcliff Lake Hilton is being converted into residential, Goddard across the street, the strip mall where Fresh Market's gonna become a Trader Joe's. Right, and restaurants, and then, God forbid, on the north side of us, it's several hundred more apartments where KPMG is, plus a data center. Safe to say, in my opinion, a traffic analysis that looks back and doesn't pro-form in everything that we know to be occurring doesn't seem to hold up, so that.
John, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's,
Thanks.
yeah, so I think first of all, a lot of what you're talking about is not in this report, but that's all fine as well. For this development, what we're concerned about is the access in and out of the site. Chestnut Ridge Road is an arterial roadway controlled by Bergen County. The traffic added as a result of this development, it is minimal in nature because it's also fixed in really 2 separate times of day. Whereas a lot of these other developments do increase traffic, cause an increase in the volume on the road throughout the day or throughout multiple days, the weekend, and so. This project in terms of traffic impact, it's not going to be significant on Chestnut Ridge Road. You're not going to materially feel the impact of these additional vehicles that are coming in and out of the site. Really anywhere along this corridor, except as you pass the drop-offs.
And John, the county did issue an exemption.
Yes.
What's called as a letter of no interest, indicating that they had no concerns with the use of their roadway for this use. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can I just ask a quick question? We have a traffic light to get out of our.
What's your name, please?
Hang on, ma'am.
Now, how are these people?
Miss,
out?
Miss, you gotta just state your name. And then the municipality. Okay, and your question is for the traffic engineer.
We have a traffic light to get out of our community. How are all these cars, they're gonna stand there, the fumes are gonna come out onto these people that live in 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. They can't make a left easily at all. They can't make a right, the traffic is terrible on Chestnut Ridge Road without some kind of a traffic light.
Right, so
That's
regarding a traffic light, because we get this question a lot, is why can't you install a traffic light with this application? And the main criteria here is that this site, all inclusive, would not meet federal traffic signal laws. So the federal government has requirements that mandate minimum thresholds to hit in order to install a traffic light. And those traffic volume numbers are never met over the course of the day at this site. So even if we wanted to put in a traffic signal, and this is why the federal protections are there, even if we wanted to put in the signal, we would not be allowed to because we don't meet any of the warrants that are published by the federal government. It's a mechanism that they have to reduce the number of traffic signals and prevent developers, towns, whomever from putting in too many signals, because while traffic signals seem great and perfect in practice, in theory, in practice, they do have unintended side effects like increased rear ends. So that's just, we just can't do it. So that's why it wasn't, contemplated with this site plan.
Any other questions for the witness from the members of the public?
Motion to close.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, so I will call up my final witness, Harry Tubell. Who is our professional planner, who will briefly address the board as to the variance that we are seeking for. So. I'll be long.
It'll be quick.
We only, it's on 10.
Mr. Duval. True. Do you swear that the testimony about to give this board is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And again, for the record, your name is?
Okay, my name is Harry Tuvel, Tuvel. At my address is 629 Ridge Court in Ridgefield, New Jersey. I'm a professional engineer and professional planner licensed in the state of New Jersey, and I've testified before many boards in Bergen, Hudson, and Essex.
I've witnessed Mr.
Passaic as well.
Testified.
And I think I've testified
I
before
think
this
you've
board.
testified before us
Yeah.
as well, so
Your
we'll accept
license
his expert.
And his license is in good standing,
Yeah.
as he just answered.
So Harry, you've heard the variance, you've heard the foundational testimony. If you can please walk the board through your testimony with respect to the relief being sought.
Sure, certainly. I don't want to really repeat too much of what's been testified by the civil engineer, the architect, and the traffic. You all know that this is a 4-acre site located in the B3 zone on Chestnut Ridge Road, where there is going to the existing tenant is using about nearly 38,000 square feet of that, and the site is, and you know that the site is bounded by Chestnut Ridge Road on the west, the Garden State Parkway on the east, the Whole Foods Shopping Center on the south, and the senior residential building on the north. You've heard the parking testimony as well. That for both the office and for all of the uses, and the parking requirement is 171 spaces and 204 spaces are required. I was thinking that many times when I testify, the planning can be the toughest part of the testimony. I think in this case, it might be the easiest, because the variances that we're requesting are really quite minimal. We are requesting bulk variances under C2 of the municipal land use law, which relates to a specific piece of property where the purposes of zoning are advanced by a deviation from the zoning ordinance, and the benefits would substantially outweigh any detriment. The existing nonconformity of building was approved 30 years ago. That's an existing nonconformity. And the other variance that we're here for is the small surface coverage variance, and of approximately 240 square feet. All of the other zoning requirements are compliant on this property, but and it's because we're using an existing building. So for the planning proofs, under the positive criteria, the proposed uses that we're applying for this evening, the daycare center, they're considered inherently beneficial, which satisfies the special reasons requirement that you need to make under the statute. In addition, the RLUPA, the Religious Land Use Act, states that no land use regulation may impose a substantial burden on the exercise of religion unless a compelling government interest is shown. The day school preschool use is actually a permitted use in this zone, and as we know, the parking requirements are met. So the C2 variance is known, and I'm sure you've heard many planners testify, it's known as the flexible C variance, where the board does a balancing act. It balances the nonconformity proposed, which in this case is really only the very small increase in coverage and the extent of any negative impact. Again, in my opinion, this is essentially a minimal or really a de minimis case of this very small 0.14% increase in the coverage. And so under the negative criteria, which states that even for an inherently beneficial use, a variance can only be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and it will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. In my opinion, the minor nature of the C2 variance proposed here does not rise to substantial detriment or substantial impairment of the zone plan. There is essentially no detriment arising from the granting of the variance. The site is largely unchanged from the existing, and it represents a good planning alternative for this site. The purposes of zoning and municipal land use law are advanced under a number of items in the statute. I can go through them. They're known as A, G, and A, G, C, and I. I can recite them for you. A is encouraging municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development of all lands in the state in a manner which promotes the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Under C, it provides adequate light, air, and open space. G, it provides sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses. And also, I think under I, we are providing a desirable visual environment using creative development techniques and good civic design, and establishing appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of the neighborhood and the community. So with that, and of course, any questions, that concludes my planning testimony.
Just a couple of follow-ups. As it pertains to the particular relief, the 0.14% increase in coverage, obviously, I think stormwater management is something that is typically looked at with coverage. You heard Mr. Dipple testify that there is a substantial stormwater detention system under the parking lot right now, that it would flow, any additional coverage would flow into that. So between that, as well as I think it was Mr. Dewan who pointed out before that while technically the rubberized surface and the pavers are impervious by the code, they are more pervious than the asphalt that is largely there right now. So those two things, coupled with the conditions that we've agreed to on the record, including establishing a point person for any concerns from the neighbors, as well as the additional landscaping to be coordinated with Mr. Trost's office and with Neglia's office as needed. Do you feel, with all of that taken, that the mitigative measures taken would effectively mitigate the relief being sought?
Yes, I do, and I think that we were very conservatively estimating the coverage, not taking any credit for the fact that the playground surface went from essentially impervious to being somewhat pervious. These days, because of the advent of pervious pavers and all kinds of things, many municipalities actually give in some cases a 30%, a 50% credit for using the different materials. So I think we were very conservative, and the 0.14%, as I said, is de minimis, and another way of looking at it is that it's not really there.
And the only other question I have for you, there was a suggestion, I forget from whom, well, you could technically comply by killing 1 or 2 parking spaces and creating green space, but that would obviously reduce the parking. So is it my final question, is it your professional opinion that the variance being sought for that coverage, the benefits thereof substantially outweigh any detriments?
Yes, that is my testimony. I do believe that killing another couple of parking spaces does not do anything.
Thank you. I have nothing further to do about that.
Any questions from the board?
Motion to open to the public for the witness?
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
We done?
You first, no, you got a question.
Okay, go.
You're on the hot seat.
All right, no, I'm not, no.
Yep.
I thought you said public comment.
No.
Oh, question.
Question for the witness.
Are you gonna have a final public?
There's always a final vote.
Final.
Yep, not yet. We're almost there.
Fine.
If we've got no questions from this witness, then we can,
Second.
all in favor?
My part was gonna be easy.
That's it, you're done.
You're done.
Well done.
All right, now, cool, but do you have a closing statement?
Did you want to hear from public first?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Motion to open for public comment.
perfect.
Second.
Can I say something?
All in favor?
Or motion to open. That's not first.
Yeah, open the public. That's it.
Yep.
You're up, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I have never done this before, but I must say, Mr. Trost did a great job.
Say your name again for the record.
Bill Patterson, Woodcliff Lake.
Thank you.
First time I've done this, credit to Mr. Trost for helping me understand the burden of proof you all have tonight for a bulk variance C2. There's a very clear burden of proof. You have to make two findings. First, you have to make a finding that not only are the benefits of the request, not only do they outweigh detriments, broadly defined, but they need to substantially outweigh detriments. I think you've heard from a lot of owners who live very close to this facility. You've heard testimony about or concerns about detriments from the noise from the playground. Concerns about potential queuing and the noise and the impact that that may have. And by the way, tonight was the first time we heard of any of that because none of that was in the traffic engineer's report. The traffic engineer's report that we used to educate ourselves tonight was solely with respect to the corridor. So kind of working on the fly here a little bit, but so I said the applicant needs to establish two findings to your satisfaction. The second one, of course, is no substantial detriment to the public good. I think that's a little bit easier hurdle for the applicant, but I think the first hurdle is very meaningful because not only do they have to be benefits, but they have to substantially outweigh the detriments. And I would submit to you that you've heard plenty of potential detriments tonight. Life is risk. There's no guarantee. All the consultants have shot down all the concerns we have. But just saying, in my opinion, I don't think the applicant has established that the benefits substantially outweigh a number of the detriments, potential detriments that you heard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
I'd like to address this. I think that we're definitely.
Public.
Okay. Public comment, I'm sorry, not questions.
Any other members of the public have any comment?
If this comes to fruition, and I get the impression from the board, just from you listening, that you're probably gonna pass it, I highly object to the grill. I've been to a lot of sanctuaries, none of them ever had a grill on site. I think it's a danger. Yes, it's a propane one, but I just don't see any need and why a sanctuary needs to have a grill. So that's something that I really highly object to, and I'm just stating my opinion. Because I don't think any complaints on our part, and we have a lot more people that we had a meeting at last Saturday. We didn't get a lot of advance notice. I did not get a 10-day legal advance notice. I got it last Wednesday. So whatever firm was to take care of that did not get it out in the 10 days that it was required to come to the residents. I've never heard anything from the rabbi, no reach out to be neighborly or reach out to welcome us. I will tell you now, when KPMG was occupied, everybody walked through Four Seasons at Ridgemont up our service road, which is covered with grass. It's built with brick interlacing and grass grew over. That was for the fire trucks. They walked through, I'm gonna call it the Chabad, but it's what's the McLaren. They walked through McLaren, as many of us did, to walk to Whole Foods, to walk to the shopping center. There's a bunch of other restaurants, stores. So now you're gonna have a gate that's gonna say, don't come in. Well, you can leave the McLaren boats, which are obnoxiously unsightly, and you also used to have trailers in there too. The trailers have been new. The two boats that I saw this afternoon were now on the parallel side adjacent to Woodcliff Lake. They moved them from the back of the parking lot, now they're up on, concrete blocks on the side. I don't know if that's permanent or not. But, that's my complaints, and it doesn't sound like the synagogue Chabad is welcoming to the neighbors. And if this comes to fruition, I have a real big question for you, Rabbi. I don't know when this nursery school is gonna open up, but I perceive it's gonna take 6 months to a year to build all this out, I would think. Have you considered, God forbid, because we all know it happens to all synagogues, and that's why you have police coverage, etc., an evacuation plan for all the children and employees who live in your building? Because to me, as your neighbor, there's no church around that you could go to, because many schools, my synagogue had a church relationship in Maryland, where God forbid they had to evacuate, they walked the children over and they went to a church. The only neighbors that you got, because I don't think Whole Foods is gonna be the type, would have been our community. We have a clubhouse. We could have taken in 70-some people in case of an emergency. And we would have done it out of the goodness of our heart. That hasn't even been brought up. I don't know if that's because you haven't thought of that far along in a nursery school. I've taken 2 kids to nursery school drop off. There is no way in hell that a kid gets dropped off in 20 to 30 seconds. Wait till you have a kid who has a temper tantrum. First of all, I don't see why they can't come back in the back of your parking lot and walk the kids in. Why there has to be a drop off to create that problem. A lot of the other nursery schools and all the mothers are not going to be there at 3 o'clock. They're going to be there at 2:45, lined up to pick up their children. I know this. I'm a mother of 2 grown kids and 4 grandchildren. I picked up from Temple Emmanuel. I picked up from the one down that used to be the JCC and now it's something else down in Washington Township. I picked up all over. I know what the line is like. As a grandmother, I would leave 45 minutes, so I would be the first car in line when the grandchildren knew that I was picking them up rather than their parents. You gotta think about that. It's not a one-shot deal of 1 minute. And I don't see, if you all choose to vote in 10 minutes, but I would think that this needs a discussion amongst all of you. And this should be tabled and brought back. But if it's gonna be a done deal, it's gonna be a done deal. I don't know how you operate. But you've heard our input. And we never had any input from Chabad. No reach out at all. Just our board members met with the rabbi, and that was due to the rabbi contacting one of the board members.
Right,
Yes,
but
for
your board members are a representative of the association.
Yes, I'm,
So,
that was just last week.
okay. But I think the rabbi has stated that he will be reaching out to make sure that you are friendly neighbors. And he has been operating there for a couple of years now. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other members of the public?
Motion to close for public comment.
All in favor? Thank you.
So I'll be brief with my closing. First of all, I am a dad. I do drop off kids and everything that I've heard in testimony does quite honestly bear out, maybe not on day 1, maybe not on week 1, but at the end of the day, these programs operate in a way that makes as much sense for the operator as it does for the parents dropping off their kids. When I drop off my son, where I go now, it is really 30 seconds and it's in and out because I need to be out of there and I need to get to work and they don't want to be outside. So I think a lot of the concerns that you heard from the neighbors, which are valid concerns, and it's why we bring professionals and it's why we address the comments. And it's why you heard from consultants who not only represent us as an applicant and other applicants, they actually represent municipalities and deal with this on your side of the dais and say, well, is what I'm testifying to correct? Would I allow this in my town? So I think that bears noting that it's valid testimony. I also want to just say before I conclude briefly, Mr. Patterson is about 99% way to becoming a land use attorney, and I mean that truly in a wonderful way. He outlined the test 99% perfectly. The one thing that was missed, he's correct that the benefits must substantially outweigh the detriments of the variance being sought, right? It's not the benefits of an entirely conforming site plan application substantially outweighing detriments. It's the benefits substantially outweighing the detriments of the variance being sought. The variance being sought here this evening, as you've heard multiple times throughout the meeting, is for that 0.14% increase in coverage. Every other aspect of this application has been vetted for conformity. It's not like we showed up at the meeting this evening having done no due diligence. This has been months and months and months in the making of our own professionals, vetting this out and ensuring that it's a conforming site plan application, but for that one tweak. You also heard testimony from the civil engineer that we could even eliminate that variance at the expense of 1 or 2 parking spaces, but for what real good? So our burden of proof is that the variance being sought, the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments. You heard about the stormwater management. You heard that we're replacing a lot of this that surface, not just with asphalt, but with materials that, for better or worse, in a lot of towns would be considered somewhat pervious and are by their very nature somewhat pervious. The water does go through these surfaces. So I think that mitigates the relief being sought. And I'll just close by saying again, you heard substantial testimony from the rabbi, which it's not often that you hear from an applicant themselves, because ordinarily we limit it to the polished professional witnesses that we provide. You've heard from Rabbi Drizin that he's open to working with the community as a liaison, giving out his own personal phone number so that if there are any issues, he will address them, though probably not on the Sabbath, but soon thereafter. And at the end of the day, we've also agreed to a condition. I think it was Miss Grassi, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, that had a valid concern about, well, I don't see anything now happening in the rear yard, even though it's conforming, I'm still going to see it. And we've agreed to work with Mr. Trost and with Neglia Engineering if there's any additional landscaping we can provide along that property line to provide a little more visual buffering. So with that, I thank the board truly for their time and for extending their meeting beyond normal operating hours. And I would respectfully request that the application with the sole item of relief being sought be granted here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I think Rabbi Dove has been a member of this community for a long time now. I think he's proven that he can be a good neighbor. I think the variance sought is very de minimis in nature, and I think you're correct. They simply could have just removed 2 parking spaces to make that up, and then they literally would not have been seeking any variances at all. The application of a daycare center is known in the industry as being inherently beneficial. And it's really not a decision for this board to make with regard for the use. It's just on the nature of the additional impervious coverage of 0.14%, 250 square feet on a 160,000 square foot site. My opinion is that this application should move forward.
Motion to approve the application as submitted.
What do you want these conditions?
We have some conditions that we
Based on
would
those
like to, I guess, reiterate.
So is there 2 conditions then?
Well, the applicant had stated the maximum capacity
Okay.
of 65 and 16 employees.
65, maximum of 65
Students.
students.
I think we said 65 to 70. I think
65 to 60.
65 to 68, 68. That's
6-7.
6.
Oh.
You just-
Wow.
And that wasn't layup. We said that. All right, we'll make it 67. And 16 employees.
How many students again?
65 to 68 was the testimony.
65 to 68 students. And how many staff?
16, I believe, is what we
16.
testified to.
16 staff.
That
would be the maximum
right.
conditions.
That Rabbi Dove will also supply his information to the board member or the board of the Four Seasons
As a point
as
person.
outreach, as a point person. And I think, did you not
I think the
discuss
applicant was gonna work with
for landscape?
If there's any additional reasonable landscaping that can be.
Some natural buffering maybe on the north side of the site.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? Yeah. And hours, I think, did you also testify to hours of operation?
I mean, the testimony is a testimony, right?
Right,
Like it-
so we don't have to go through that.
Right.
Okay, so that's the motion on the table. You wanna go go through, yeah. Yep.
Mr. Shapiro.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Marsh.
Yes.
Mr. Panza.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Dewan.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Mazur.
Yes.
Chairman Bellarmine.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Again.
All in favor?
Yeah.